Number 10. Germaphobe. While speaking to Jonathan Ross in a 2015 interview, Priscilla Presley revealed that her late ex-husband was terrified of germs and would take his phobia to the extreme. She claimed that he even refused to use anyone else's silverware, which even included the ones at high-end restaurants. She said that because of his secret germophobia, he never liked to go to other people's homes to eat because he would have to take his own silverware, and that would often cause quite an uncomfortable situation, as you could imagine. Quote, and he didn't like drinking out of cups that other people had drunk out of, even restaurants or other people's homes. So when he drank, he would drink where the handle was, knowing that no one would ever drink at that side. Although this information is not widely known, Priscilla says Elvis has been that way ever since he was a child. She believed that he just didn't like to put his mouth where other people had put their mouth, especially with cutlery and dishes, which is definitely something most people wouldn't have known about the star. Number 9. Liked younger women. In her book Elvis and Me, Priscilla Presley wrote that she just turned 14 when she met Elvis Presley, who was 24 years old at the time and already an international superstar. Despite the scandal, they started an intimate courtship that lasted 7 years before they eventually married in 1967. Now, the age difference is creepy on its own, but it becomes even creepier when you compare that to what Linda Thompson wrote in her own memoir. Thompson, who dated Elvis after his marriage to Priscilla ended, was also very young and inexperienced at the time. In fact, he allegedly told her, quote, I want to preserve you for as long as you need. Whatever he meant by that, it just sounds super icky. Elvis reportedly took advantage of his power to manipulate young, impressionable fans whenever he went on tour. Joel Williamson, who wrote a historical book about Elvis, claimed that 2 years before he met his future wife, the star took a group of 3 girls with him on tour for the purpose of, quote, pillow fights, tickling, and cuddling. Number 8. His vanity. Fame is a terrible drug that often pushes stars into the oddest methods of trying to stay thin and beautiful. Linda Thompson wrote in her memoir that Elvis's obsession with being slim would drive him to bizarre measures to keep the weight off, including an alleged 2-week period of sedation. That's exactly what it sounds like. Elvis mainly slept all day except for brief periods where he woke up long enough to go to the bathroom and eat a small portion of food before being sedated again and going back to sleep. She also claimed that he regularly did crash diets on just 500 calories a day. She also exposed his secret about why he constantly wore shirts with high collars. Apparently, he did it to conceal his neck, which he actually hated. She wrote that the whole reason he wore the trademark style was to keep his, quote, skinny little chicken neck hidden from the public. Then at age 40, Elvis allegedly opted for a facelift. Quote, there has been speculation through the years that Elvis has his eyes done or some other mystery procedure, but that mini facelift was the extent of his plastic surgery. Well, it seems like his ex-wife was really intent on revealing a side of him that was incredibly vain. Number 7. Pet chimpanzee. This one is really messed up. Billy Smith, who was a member of Elvis's entourage, openly talked about how Scatter, Elvis's pet chimpanzee, was essentially used as a party favor that they trained to harass women. It said that the chimp would often look for women at parties and grab onto their clothes. According to Smith, Scatter also drank heavily. Quote, he could down a fifth of liquor before you knew it. Smith remembered another time when Scatter was beaten by a woman at a party for misbehaving. There have been conflicting reports about what really happened to the chimp. Some state that he merely lost his life due to old age, but Smith speculated that Scatter was poisoned by one of the maids who was tasked with feeding him after he was abandoned by Elvis and the crew who were out on the road. Although it's unclear exactly how he passed, it appears as though Scatter took his last breath on his own after years of living the party lifestyle. The whole thing was really rather sad, as it seemed like Elvis and his friends used the chimp just to entertain themselves and discarded him when they went on tour. Number 6. Attacked his fiancée. After Linda Thompson, Elvis briefly dated Mindy Miller before becoming involved with Ginger Alden, who was a full 20 years younger than him. It was only 2 months into their relationship when Elvis proposed to her and she accepted. The couple planned to walk down the aisle just a few months before Elvis's untimely death, and Alden even said how excited he was about their wedding and their future together as a couple. She revealed to Express that during his final days, quote, Elvis was looking forward to many things: marriage, more children, serious films, and his next tour. But Elvis was reportedly very manipulative when it came to women and could be extremely jealous and controlling. According to sources close to the star at the time, he could get very violent. His treatment of her was horrifying, and the pair constantly argued during their time together. After one particular fight, he allegedly asked someone in his entourage to pop the tires on Alden's car so she couldn't leave his home, and on another occasion, when she was driving away after an argument, Elvis reportedly aimed his weapon at her car and fired. Number 5. Allegations of racism. Last year, Quincy Jones revealed to The Hollywood Reporter that he always refused to work with Elvis because he was a racist. The musician, best known for producing Michael Jackson's albums Thriller, Off the Wall, and Bad, made the comments about Elvis's supposed history of racism in his new interview. The outlet asked Jones about Presley after the producer compared Jackson to the king of rock and roll. The 88-year-old musician and producer described a time when he was writing for the orchestra leader Tommy Dorsey in the 50s, and Elvis came in saying, quote, "I don't want to play with him." Jones went on to call Elvis a racist and added, quote, "But every time I saw Elvis, he was being coached by Otis Blackwell, telling him how to sing." And while there wasn't an overwhelming amount of accusations surrounding Elvis's past racism, there are certainly many allegations against the icon for appropriating black culture and repackaging it to the general public as his own. Despite this, it's obvious that American society still allowed him to have a very successful career, whether it was something the lead singer did consciously or subconsciously. Number 4. Hidden children. Even though he has been gone for many years, Elvis Presley has always been the center of several new scandals and controversies. One of the many that have hit the headlines in the last few years is that the king of rock and roll supposedly kept hidden children from the rest of the world. The National Enquirer actually conducted a 2-year investigation into the hidden children of the Presley family, reportedly acquiring witness testimonies, checking receipts, mail correspondence, birth certificates, and even DNA tests. The result of the investigation allegedly proves that Elvis did have several additional children that were being kept away from the spotlight of Hollywood. In fact, multiple alleged mothers of Elvis's hidden children have come forward to tell their stories about how they met the star, and the stories have some strange similarities. One example is Desiree Romaine Presley, who is the daughter of Lucy DeBarban, and she claims that her mother was in a 24-year-long relationship with Elvis and was being kept away from the media. But the crazy thing is that Desiree's father is listed as Randolph Presley on her birth certificate, someone who allegedly worked at the Air Force Base in Oklahoma City. Number 3. Addicted to medication. It's not unheard of for celebrities to turn to substances as a way to cope with fame and just how crazy their lives become in the spotlight. But Elvis's alleged addictions could have had a very different origin when you look at the tragedy of his mother's passing. In 1958, he was drafted into the US Army, but went to Germany but had to return to the US less than 6 months later because of his mother's untimely death. Many people believe that this marked the beginning of the end for Elvis, who quickly headed down a path of self-destruction. As soon as he returned to Germany, it's reported that Elvis partied heavily and would often get into fights. During this time, he also started taking illegal substances to try and deal with the grief of losing his mother. This probably snowballed, and it's assumed that from that moment on, the misuse of substances played a major role in his life. Linda Thompson wrote several examples in her memoir about these incidents and says that she often found Elvis passed out in a bowl of chicken noodle soup under the influence of sedatives. She even says that doctors tried to hospitalize him for 2 weeks after misusing a combination of medication for far too long. Number 2. Why Priscilla ended things. Because she was only 14 years old when their courtship began, it's really no surprise that she missed out on a huge chunk of her adolescence. She told Jonathan Ross in 2015, quote, "I was kind of lost, really, in who I was earlier in my life. I really didn't have teenage years." After their first child, Lisa Marie, was born, Priscilla accused Elvis of not wanting to sleep with her after she had given birth. Elvis told her that he wanted her to recover, but Priscilla later wrote in her memoir that he had mentioned before they were married that he had never been able to make love with a woman who'd had a child. In fact, throughout their marriage, Elvis continued to cheat on Priscilla with other women, and she herself had her own affair with an owner of a dance studio. It's safe to say that their marriage never really recovered. They finalized their divorce in 1973, and she said that this was because her life was his life, which meant her problems were always going to be secondary. Years later, she admitted that she did not divorce him because she didn't love him, but because she had to find out about the world. She was clearly just way too young when they started seeing each other. Number 1. Erratic violence. In recent years, Linda Thompson has been pretty open about her time with Elvis Presley, stating, quote, "We all knew how dangerous Elvis's rage could be. Apparently, when she first noticed Elvis could get pretty angry was when someone reportedly stole personal photos of one of his ex-girlfriends with another woman. She claimed that he then decided to show off his samurai sword collection while under the influence of illegal substances and left her fearing for her life. Although she said that he was true to his word and he didn't in fact hurt her, she she was concerned because his talents were entirely impaired due to the narcotics. These were just some of the several times that his ex said that she worried about his boiling rage. Apparently, the musician even invested in a concealed carry permit to take the weapons on stage with him, including several that were actually stuffed into his shoes, just in case someone got a little bit too rowdy in the crowd. Even singer Tom Jones spoke about Elvis's love of weapons during a visit to his dressing room. Tom said that he noticed a loaded weapon just sat on the side and simply handed it to Elvis by wrapping it in a towel. Sounds a little crazy to me.
Number 10. The Maui Fund scandal. Now, who would have guessed that the woman famous for handing out cars on her talk show is being cancelled by the entire world? Why? Well, Oprah made a career-ending mistake when herself and Dwayne Johnson broke the one rule of being a billionaire. Don't ask poor people for their money. Last week, Oprah and The Rock announced that they would be starting a relief fund for the victims of the Maui wildfires. The People's Fund of Maui was given a solid $10 million to get off the ground. $10 million donated by Oprah and Dwayne combined. So why is it just Oprah that's getting so much hate online? Well, it's because she has a net worth of roughly $2.8 billion. Billion with a B. The world is collectively furious at Oprah for having the audacity to ask working class citizens for charity when most people can barely afford to put food on their tables. The Rock and Oprah donated $5 million each to give the fund a head start. Well, guess what? $5 million to Oprah Winfrey is like $500 to us. Like, it's still a lot, but it's chump change to her. Oprah addressed all the hate online, telling the Daily Mail that she was disappointed in the reactions from the world. Rather than focusing on the good things and the people of Maui, the world was mad that she asked them to give her a nickel. Well, Oprah has yet to confirm if she'll be donating any more to the fund, but so far it's not looking like she will. Number 9. Her controversial beliefs. Oprah has had plenty of controversial people on her show, from so-called medical experts to psychologists to celebrities. Whatever is good for TV, it's good for Oprah. One particular incident that caused a ton of backlash for Oprah was when she did an interview with Suzanne Summers. She was brought onto the show to share her beauty secrets on how she was able to look so young. According to Summer, this treatment that she does on a regular basis will help. Suzanne claims that she rubs estrogen cream into her skin on one arm and smears progesterone in her other arm. Progesterone is just a fancy way of saying steroids. She also claimed that she took 60 supplements and vitamins a day, 40 in the morning and 20 before bed. What really stirred the pot was this woman claiming to be a health expert and a so-called self-help author. But surprise, surprise, a doctor she is not. Medical experts started bashing Oprah, claiming that this type of extreme hormone therapy would actually be the cause of several diseases and illnesses. You know, like cancer. Despite Suzanne's claim that her specially made, non-FDA approved bioidenticals are natural and safe, they're actually just synthetic conventional hormones that you can buy from a pharmacy. Oprah did everything in her power to sell this idea to her audience, believing 100% that these methods were useful, and even claimed that she used the methods herself to make herself feel incredible. So this lady would rather risk her audience getting cancer than just telling them the truth. Solid. Number 8. The free cars. Who could forget Oprah's famous words? You get a car, everyone gets a car! The moment was historical on her series and was parodied time and time again, and it still does to this day. However, what many people don't know is that it was not as simple as, here are the keys, have fun. When someone gives out anything on television, there is always a catch. For Oprah's audience, the catch was that if they wanted to drive away in their brand new car, they would have to pay $7,000 in taxes first. While Oprah's studio would cover, the sales tax and the registration for the vehicles, the audience members were given a choice to either pay the $7,000 and take the car, or just kind of take the cash instead. The infamous moment on the show featured 11 real teachers who were, according to Oprah, in desperate need of a new car. They, along with the audience members, received keys in a box on camera that Oprah claimed to be for their new cars. Everything has a catch, even now though. For someone who is known for being super charitable and generous, the word free clearly means something else to Oprah. Number 7, she will never marry Stedman. Oprah and her partner Stedman have been together for a long time, but have never actually gotten married. While Stedman has never explained why this is, Oprah shared her side of the story. According to Oprah, getting married would mean that she would not be able to have her own life, claiming that everything she had built on her own would be at risk, like he was some kind of a career parasite or something. The strangest part about her logic behind this is the fact that she said on air that she wanted Stedman to propose to her as soon as possible, so not sure what that is. Their relationship has survived a lot despite the years of rumors and speculations. However, a source close to Oprah said that in her 4 years working with the show, she could tell that there was absolutely nothing there with Stedman. Oprah just wanted to portray herself as a woman who loves her man, you know? When in reality, Stedman probably has a house separate from Oprah's, but it's like 1/5 the size. Number 6, the NDAs. Confidentiality agreements are not uncommon in the world of Hollywood. Marvel will literally have someone take you out if even a single line leaks to the public. In Kitty Kelly's tell-all book about Oprah, the author mentions the confidentiality agreements that co-workers and guest stars were always made to sign. This included everyone from Tom Cruise to the person who made Tom Cruise's muffin. Over 500 staff members were forced to sign the document. One former employee, Elizabeth Cody, tried to write a book about her time working for Oprah, but she was apparently stopped by the courts, still being tied to the agreement that she had signed. The NDAs were not meant to be a way to keep just show secrets safe, but any and all of Oprah's secrets as well. According to Elizabeth, the document was signed by almost everyone in Oprah's life. She may have this brand of sweetness and kindness, but apparently that's not how she actually is. Elizabeth felt that she was in Oprah's pocket after she signed the paperwork. In 2010, a lawsuit was even filed against Oprah and her company because Unicus Performance Training claimed that they were fired for violating the terms of this agreement, specifically involving advertising with her name, or the website of the show. That makes no sense. Number 5, diva. On air, Oprah is portrayed as a wholesome, sweet lady, but according to her stepmother, there is an unknown side to this woman, hidden from fans for years. According to Barbara, Oprah is one of the most controlling people that you will ever meet in your life. She claims that Oprah would not allow them to stay at her house when herself and her husband would try to visit, forcing them to stay in hotels with money out of their own pockets. Barbara also said that Oprah was quick to anger when it came to her staff, with several people being fired left and right over the years for the littlest things. But that's not all. Despite being a billionaire, Barbara allows her to stay at her house when she visits, something that Oprah apparently hates. The first time she actually stayed at her stepmother's place, Oprah allegedly complained that her bed sheets were not 1,000 threads and that her bath towels were not big enough. Okay, that one I can forgive. Ever use a giant towel? I'm never going back. This woman has billions of dollars to do literally anything she wants, and apparently what she wants is to make her family feel like a burden. Number 4, the vegan cleanse. Now when I learned about this next entry, I was genuinely shocked that Oprah Winfrey's show was never considered a toxic working environment. It turns out Oprah was a powerful woman when she was running the show. Oprah was an advocate for a ton of things on her show, but the one thing that she really doubled down on were her views on animal rights. Organizations like PETA praised Oprah for her advocacy, especially when she took it a step further by making her staff join her on a 21-day vegan cleanse. Now, while the cleanse was optional, if you signed up, there was no backing out. You were going to be vegan for 21 days or you were fired. Now, it was never actually confirmed if there was a penalty for leaving early, but according to one employee who participated in the cleanse, they were afraid to back out because Oprah was just so demanding. Oprah was a very serious woman behind the scenes, so we can only speculate what might have happened had she spotted a PA eating a Baconator. Number 3, spiritual beliefs. Now I'm going to start this entry by clarifying I'm not making fun of your beliefs, okay? If you are spiritual, if you're a spiritual person in any way, shape, or form, please know this entry is about Oprah and Oprah alone, okay? In an interview with Harper Bazaar, Oprah mentioned her daily morning routine that starts at 8:30 in the morning with various spiritual exercises. After reading Gathered Truth, she opens up an app called Bowl of Sake that delivers teachings of the Sufi, followed by some light meditation. The controversy here comes from Oprah inviting several self-fulfillment gurus onto her show and just gushing about one specific one named Guru Gary Sukhav's preachings. Now, Oprah herself has claimed to have secret spiritual knowledge about tapping into personal courage and giving general spiritual advice, but she stopped diving too deep into spirituality after this backlash from her fans and readers of her magazine. They just didn't like that about Oprah. Number 2, Wild Child. Several books have been published about Oprah over the years, some from her and some not. In her own book that she wrote, she revealed that growing up she was far from an easy kid to handle. When she was young, she was sent to live with her father Vernon after Oprah was caught stealing from her mother's purse. Despite being an on-screen persona known for charity and kindness, she was actually a menace throughout most of her life according to family members. As I mentioned previously on this list, Oprah's stepmother is not allowed to stay at her house and she's known to be pretty controlling. She admitted to doing some pretty troubling things at a young age, including staging an amnesia bout, breaking several things in her mother's home, and calling calling the police. According to Oprah's mother, she was uncontrollable, ungrateful, and after robbing her, maybe a little crazy. And at number 1, her buddy, Dr. Phil. Oprah is not just responsible for many hopes and dreams being squashed live on air, but she is also the creator of many talk show celebrities, namely health expert Dr. Oz and life coach Dr. Phil. Now, before Dr. Phil had his own show, Oprah had asked him and his courtroom consulting firm to help her with a trial. Before meeting Oprah, Phil had zero interest in being a television personality, but Oprah made him see the light, so to speak. According to Phil, she helped him understand the power of these shows and what they were truly made for. For Phil, he brings people on his show who are struggling with personal issues that just so happen to be good for television. Remember that Catch Me Outside girl? Dr. Phil made her rich and famous. But it's not just Phil that's had some controversial moments though. Her other protege, Mr. Dr. Oz, has had some pretty rough moments. His show is centered around medicine and health, bringing so-called experts on every week. My mother loved this show. Oprah was partnered with both of these people, meaning that whatever their shows made, she got a little something for her trouble. She doesn't like to advertise how much she made from these programs, but considering how many episodes they have done and how long the programs have been on for, it's probably a lot.
Starting off this countdown in no particular order, we have Woody Harrelson. Woody Harrelson's dad, Charles Harrelson, was an American hitman and organized crime figure. Yes, you heard me correctly. Beloved actor Woody Harrelson had a father who was a cold-blooded killer. He was just 7 at the time when his father first went to prison. It's said that he was responsible for the deaths of at least 20 people. In 1979, that is when Charles committed his biggest kill of all time. He took out a federal judge by the name of Judge John H. Wood Jr. He was the first federal judge to be killed in the 20th century. He was paid $250,000 to kill off this judge. It was because a drug dealer was about to be sentenced by this judge who was known as Maximum John, because he always gave out really harsh punishments to drug dealers. So he got Charles to knock him off for him. But this landed him behind bars and in solitary confinement. He was there until he was 69 when he died from a heart attack. Obviously, Woody does not want to be defined by his father's actions. In our 9th spot, we have Joaquin Phoenix. Joaquin is one of the few actors who actually grew up in a cult. He was born into the commune of Children of God, but when he was 4 years old, his parents managed to escape the cult and move. That's actually why they changed their last name to Phoenix, as it symbolizes rebirth, since they were able to leave this cult and start a new life. Unfortunately, he also lost his brother at a young age. In 1993, his brother River Phoenix died from an overdose. Joaquin witnessed this happen, and he was the one that called 911. In our 8th spot today, we have Phil Lewis. Phil Lewis is best known for his role of Mr. Mosby on The Sweet Life of Zack and Cody, and I freaking love that show. Like, it was honestly my childhood. While before his Disney Channel days, he actually killed someone. In December of 1991, Lewis fatally hit a 21-year-old woman. She passed away from her injuries from the hit. It was found that Lewis was driving while intoxicated. His blood alcohol levels were 3 times the legal limit of intoxication. As a result, he was convicted of a DUI as well as manslaughter. He was sentenced to 5 years in prison, 2 years probation, and 350 hours of community service. But he managed to only serve 1 year in prison. I guess Disney was able to overlook his past when he auditioned for Mosby on the show. In our 7th spot today, we have Tim Allen. Now, if you look at Tim Allen, you think, aw, he's such a family man. I love Home Improvement and Toy Story. He's a great actor. Wow. Tim Allen actually had quite a dark past before he got into acting. In 1978, Allen was arrested for attempting to traffic more than 650 grams of coke. He was arrested in Kalamazoo Battle Creek International Airport. Now, he actually would have served a lifetime in prison, but he avoided this by giving police information about other dealers. As a result, his sentence was reduced to 3 to 7 years. He ended up serving 2 years and 4 months in prison and then was granted parole in 1981. I guess that's why they say don't judge a book by its cover, because he looks like a wholesome dad, not a drug trafficker. In our 6th spot, we have Jack Nicholson. In 1974, Time magazine discovered that Jack's sister, June, was actually his mother, not his sister. How wild is that? So June was only 17 when she became pregnant with Jack, and she wasn't married, so her parents agreed to raise the child as their own, with Jane and Lorraine acting like his older sisters. So his parents were actually his grandparents, and his sister Lorraine was his aunt. In regards to his dad, we don't know for sure who is his dad, but some say it was likely June's manager. Other sources claim June really just doesn't know who the father was. By the time Jack found this all out, his mom, June, June and his grandma had already passed away. Imagine how that would have changed his life. Like, he was raised on a lie. We are now at our 5th and halfway mark with Sean Penn. A number of women have come forward saying that Sean Penn has been aggressive towards them. In fact, he has mistreated a number of his partners, including Madonna. They were married from 1985 to 1989. While in December of 1988, Penn allegedly tied Madonna to a chair and held her hostage for 9 hours and apparently hit her multiple times. When he untied her to let her use the bathroom, she fled to the police station. One officer said, and I quote, "Madonna staggered into the station. She was distraught, crying, with makeup smeared all over her face. I hardly recognized her. She had obviously been struck." Sean was charged with inflicting corporal injury and traumatic conditions on Madonna, as well as battery. But Madonna withdrew her complaint a week later and has rarely commented on it since, which is quite odd. Why would she say that he harmed her and then retract the statement? So who knows what really happened? Moving on to number 4, we have Leighton Meester. Now, I personally did not know this, but Blair Waldorf, aka Leighton Meester, wasn't always the queen bee of Manhattan. In fact, she was born in prison. Basically, her mom was serving a sentence after smuggling a lot of marijuana out of Jamaica with the help of Leighton's dad and Aunt Judy. All of them ended up behind bars. In fact, her aunt managed to escape prison and became America's first woman on the US Marshals 15 Most Wanted list. How insane is that? In the end, Leighton's grandmother raised her while her mom served 16 months in prison. Thank gosh she didn't follow in her family's footsteps. In our 3rd spot, we have Christopher Walken. Christopher Walken was involved in a death that is just shrouded in mystery. On November 29th, 1981, 43-year-old actress Natalie Wood was found dead floating face down in the Pacific Ocean. She was on a yacht with her husband Robert Wagner and Christopher Walken when this happened. The thing is, no one really knows what happened to her. Some say she slipped off the deck and fell into the water, while others are convinced that her husband or Christopher Walken had something to do with it, or that they know what happened. One theory is that Natalie and Christopher were having an affair, Wagner found out about it, got mad, and pushed her off the yacht. Now, Wagner seems to be the prime suspect, but many people think that Walken knows exactly what happened. I mean, he barely even talks about the case, and on the rare occasion that he did, he would call it an accident, and also he was absent from the documentary about her. All I'm gonna say is someone knows something. I'm getting the vibe that Walken knows what happened and maybe he just feels guilty about it. In our 2nd spot, we have Charlize Theron. Charlize Theron actually had a very traumatic upbringing. Her dad struggled with alcohol addiction and would constantly threaten Charlize and her mom, Gerda. He would never physically hurt her, but he would hurt Gerda. One night in June of 1991, he got angry and fired shots at both of them. During that altercation, Gerda ran and grabbed her own handgun that she had kept hidden and shot him back. Her shots killed him while Charlize watched it all unravel. In the end, it was declared self-defense and Gerda never faced any charges. But think how traumatizing that must have been for her to see her mother shoot and kill her dad as a teenager. And in our number 1 spot today, we have Ashton Kutcher. Now, I never knew this, and I was incredibly shocked when I found out about it. But on February 21st of 2001, Ashton Kutcher went over to his then girlfriend's house, Ashley Elrin. The two had planned on going to a post-Grammy party, but when he knocked on the door, there was no answer. That's because Ashley was dead on the floor of her home. She had been stabbed 47 times by a man named the Hollywood Ripper. He was responsible for the death of up to 10 women. As a result, Ashton Kutcher lost his girlfriend very suddenly and in a very traumatic way. He was also scared that he was going to be a suspect in the murder investigation since his fingerprints were on her door, but he never was. But he did have to testify in court.
Starting off this countdown in no particular order, we've got Jon Hamm. Jon Hamm is most notably famous for his role in the hit television series Mad Men as a cutthroat advertising executive. What he may not want you to know about him, however, were his less than savory college days that landed him in some serious trouble. In 1990, Jon was arrested for his alleged role in a fraternity hazing that turned horribly violent. His fraternity house was even dissolved after Hamm and his friends harmed a pledge so violently that he was in the hospital, even going as far as to light him on fire. Jon was charged with a misdemeanor offense, and when he was asked about it in 2018, his response wasn't the best. Quote, "I was essentially acquitted. I wasn't convicted of anything. I was caught up in a big situation, a stupid kid in a stupid situation, and it was a bummer. I moved on from it. Okay, now we're moving on, I guess. And at number 9 is Richard Pryor, the iconic comedian who is often cited as direct inspiration for other comedy legends like Eddie Murphy and Dave Chappelle. Pryor changed the game. But what you may not know is that there was an extremely dark past behind the All Smiles comic. Richard grew up in an extremely unstable childhood, raised by a substance-using mother in a brothel in Illinois. Richard saw things that no child should ever have to see, and to cope with such a horrifying childhood, he also turned to substance use to self-medicate. Richard was married 7 times to 5 different women who had trouble with the comic's insatiable personal life. He even almost passed away at his own hand when he doused himself in rum and lit himself on fire while using substances. Pryor's friend even stated in an interview, quote, "He has about 13 personalities, and while you could deal with 9 of them, the other 4 are a nightmare." At number 8 is Billy Tipton. Billy Tipton, if you haven't heard of him, was a revered jazz musician who rose to fame in the 1940s and 1950s. He lived his life in relative normalcy outside of his celebrity status. Although he was never married, he did have 5 serious girlfriends, all of whom referred to themselves as Miss Tipton. Eventually, he settled down with a woman named Kelly, and they adopted 3 sons together. It wasn't until his death from a stomach ulcer in 1989 that, as he was being rushed to the hospital, his giant secret was uncovered. Billy Tipton was born a woman and had concealed his sex throughout his entire life, even from his relationships. The revelation came as, quote, "a shock to nearly everyone, including the women who had considered themselves his wives, as well as his sons and the musicians who traveled with him." To explain away any intimacy that would have happened between his partners, Billy reportedly said that he was in a serious car accident that mutilated his body, leaving him unable to perform. At the time this was revealed, it sent shockwaves through the music scene where trans performers were basically completely unheard of. And at number 7 is Prince. The iconic pop singer is considered one of the greatest musicians to have ever lived, but he also had a secret that was only uncovered upon his tragic and sudden death in 2016. After he passed, many stories started to come to light as both bank statements became public and from various sources. These bank statements revealed that Prince had been secretly donating insane sums of money to various charities throughout his life, each with the condition that the donation be private and that the donor be kept a secret. A few organizations that he did support in the days before his death were the Harlem Children's Zone and Uptown Dance Academy, New York. He even donated $12,000 to the Louisville Free Public Library in order to keep it from closing, all under the condition that they keep his name unlisted from donor records. He reportedly gave thousands away at a time, particularly to charities related to children, as his own child tragically passed away after only 6 days of life. He also focused on environmental issues, and uniquely, unlike a lot of celebrities who choose to invest so they get a financial return, Prince just donated to foundations that support environmental causes and a transition to solar power. Number 6, Jimmy Page. Jimmy Page is the virtuoso guitarist and founder of Led Zeppelin. Jimmy is largely known as one of the greatest guitarists in the history of rock music. I mean, he set the standard for the many who have imitated his electric style. Yet, what he may not want you to know about him is his predatory relationship with a young girl who was only 14 at the time. While he toured with Led Zeppelin, Jimmy dated Lori Maddox, although they kept their relationship extremely private and basically hidden because it was, illegal and creepy. Even in the loose 70s, this relationship could have put Page in jail. They dated for a little while, and who knows what they did behind the scenes, but Jimmy eventually dumped her for BB Bell, who was of age at the time, thank God. Either way, not a fan of this one. And at number 5 is Matthew Broderick. Matthew Broderick is known largely for his titular role as Ferris Bueller in the John Hughes coming-of-age film Ferris Bueller's Day Off. He was also in The Producers and a bunch of other A-list movies. What you may not know about him, however, is that he was directly involved and in fact caused the death of numerous people. He and Jennifer Grey, the star of Dirty Dancing, were on a romantic vacation in Ireland when Matthew head-on hit the car of a 28-year-old woman and her mother. Both women were pronounced dead at the hospital. The road was straight and easy to navigate. The issue was that they were in Ireland, and he, out of habit, drove on the wrong side of the road, which led to the crash. Following the accident, Broderick was convicted of careless driving but was only fined $175, which to this day the family of the victims called a, quote, travesty of justice. At number 4 is Jackie Chan. While Jackie Chan appeared as a comedic kung fu fighting man on the screen, his personal life is absolutely insane and surprisingly not well known. In fact, Jackie himself didn't know until well into his career just how many secrets were being kept in his family. He learned in 2003 that he had 2 secret brothers living in China and that his father was a nationalist spy on secret missions to bust substance crime in mainland China. In fact, that's where he met Jackie's mother. In what seems like a moment straight out of a noir noir crime boss movie, Jackie's father met his mother, Lily Chan, because he was sent to bust her as an infamous dealer and legendary gambler in Shanghai. So, his mother was one of the lords of the Chinese underbelly, and his father was sent to arrest her. The two fled to Australia together, where they lived until their death. Jackie's father also revealed that the actor's real family name isn't Chan at all, but rather Fang. How's that for a family reunion? In at number 3 is Rose McGowan. Rose was one of the founding spokespersons in the Me Too movement, joining dozens of women who brought Harvey Weinstein to justice. She is best known for her 90s movies like Jawbreaker, Scream, and Encino Man. But what you may not know about her is her rather horrifying upbringing. She was born in Florence, Italy, where her parents lived in a commune called the Children of God. Basically, she was born into a cult that had mass allegations of horrifying crimes against humanity. I can't really say what they are because of YouTube restrictions, but if you're curious, I suggest you look into it with a serious content warning in mind. The cult in question lured people in with promises of all kinds of physical intimacy and activities, with extremely young women set to perform such acts on the men in the cult. Luckily for Rose, she was largely protected from the more heinous side of the cult, and she and her family fled when she was 14 years old, where, quote, "We hid in an old stone house and had to boil pots of water to take baths. The cult sent people to find us. I remember a man trying to break in with a hammer." Number 2 on the list, Rihanna. While the celebrity singer is in the news lately for her exciting pregnancy with A$AP Rocky, what you may not know about her is her rather insane early life, and the secrets that they kept even from her until they were finally brought to light. Old family photos were unearthed that reveal a secret side of the family that Rihanna herself rarely ever talks about: her father's other kids. Rihanna has 3 older siblings through her father by 3 different women, as he admitted to being quite the womanizer in his heyday. Her and her father have an extremely complicated relationship, as he has dealt with substance use issues for most of his life. And now to find out that she had 3 other siblings she knew nothing about, it's a wonder the two have stuck together through so much. And in at number 1 is Mark Wahlberg. The actor and singer needs no introduction, but he may need a little disclaimer beside his name for the rather horrifying incident he caused in the 80s. When he was 16 years old, Mark had an extremely harsh life, and he ended up brutally harming an elderly Vietnamese man in a racially motivated attack. He shouted slurs at him while physically harming him so badly that Mark was charged with attempted murder. While he was sentenced to 2 years in prison, for some reason he only served 45 days. In a beautiful show of faith, his victim, whose name is Johnny Trin, stated that he forgives Mark. Quote, "Everyone deserves another chance. He was young and reckless, but I forgive him now. He paid for his crime when he went to prison." Mark got a pardon from the court, basically exonerating him from his crime, an action that he later stated he regrets. Quote, "I didn't need that. I spent 28 years righting the wrong. I was relieved to find out that the injuries to his eye had occurred in the early 70s and not from the incident that happened that night, but I was able to meet with him and his wife and his daughter and apologize for these horrific acts. Some good can come out of it." First up on our list today is Marlon Brando. Marlon Brando is considered to be one of the most handsome Hollywood stars to grace the silver screen. He is also known for being an extremely talented actor who led a bit of a rough and tumble life. But what you may not know is that his ladies' man attitude resulted in various affairs and marriages, and, well, 8 kids, with the actor adopting 3 additional kids on top of that. And sadly, some of these children would have extremely unhappy lives. In 1990, one of Marlon Brando's sons, Christian, his sister Sheehan's boyfriend. Apparently, he had suspected that Sheehan's boyfriend was harming her physically, and so Christian ended up taking his life when the altercation escalated. He was charged with manslaughter and served 6 years in prison. Sadly, that wasn't the only horror that the Brando children would go through, as only 5 years later, Sheehan tragically ended up taking her own life after a diagnosis with schizophrenia and a steady mental decline. Next on the list is Liv Tyler. We all know her as the stunning half-elf woman in Lord of the Rings. She's also known as the daughter of Steven Tyler, the eccentric frontman of Aerosmith. However, that wasn't always the case. Liv Tyler was originally born as Liv Rundgren, and she believed that the famous musician and music producer Todd Rundgren was her father. However, a chance encounter as an 8-year-old with Steven Tyler started to unravel Liv's true parentage. During the meeting, Steven pointed out the eerie similarities between his own daughter and Liv, which led to her mother finally confessing the secret. Liv wasn't related to Todd at all, and in fact, her mother had kept the secret to protect her daughter because Steven was going through some serious substance issues at the time of their brief relationship. Liv eventually changed her last name to Tyler, but kept Rundgren as her middle name in homage to the man who raised her as his own at some point. Damn, I wish I had 2 rock star dads. Next up is MMA legend Ronda Rousey. She's got a spectacular record, and it's impossible to penetrate her amazing fighting legacy as she has cemented herself as one of the greats. Her personal life though, well, a little touchier. In fact, Ronda has a history of aggression in her past relationships, having violently harmed an ex-boyfriend. She is also a conspiracy theorist who has some extremely harmful opinions. She shared on her Twitter that she believes that the horrifying Sandy Hook incident was actually a manufactured incident and that the people and children involved were actually actors. I can't think of anything more harmful and disgusting than promoting that the real-life harm of was done to take away guns from Americans. Ronda shared the video and described it as, quote, extremely interesting and a must-watch documentary. Eventually, after obvious backlash, Ronda deleted the video and her manager attempted to scrub any trace of it from the internet, which obviously didn't happen because it is in fact the internet. Next up is Frank Sinatra. The smooth-singing romantic who charmed his audiences into the Hall of Greats has a seriously dark secret personal life. In fact, every move Frank Sinatra made was meticulously tracked by the FBI for 40 years in pages and pages of files. Why, you may ask? Well, outside of being held in suspicion for dodging the draft because of a supposed ear infection, he is also thought to have strong mafia ties. He's been seen in cahoots with a revolving cast of characters connected to the criminal underworld, including Chicago mob boss Sam Giancana, with whom he was close friends. Apparently, the FBI was so closely tracking Sinatra because he had introduced Sam to John F. Kennedy's campaign for presidency in an attempt to deliver Union votes. Dodging the draft and electing John F. Kennedy, Sinatra is a man after my own heart. Next up is the actor who portrayed Spider-Man in the original Spider-Man movies, you know, the ones with the PlayStation font. Well, Tobey Maguire has had an insane childhood that was largely hidden from the public when he became an A-lister. He came from a very financially strained family. His parents adopted several of his cousins after his aunt passed away suddenly, and the weight of now caring for all these kids left them destitute and broke. In a desperate attempt to provide for all these children, Toby's dad attempted to rob a bank. His attempt was unsuccessful, and his father had to spend some time in prison for his crime. Thankfully though, he was released after a few years because it was his first time offending, and the judge sympathized with his cause. Luckily for them, they made it out of the ordeal, and now Toby is an internationally recognized celebrity. Next on the list is Kevin Spacey, and not for what you might think, because really nothing can keep what he did a secret, and his attempts at hiding it are abysmal at best. But what you may not know is that there are more than a few skeletons in his closet, and he's got one secret that I actually didn't know. Kevin's left-leaning political views are very well known, so it may come as a surprise that his father was vehemently racist and believed that white people were a superior race. Kevin refuses to talk about his father, but his siblings have opened up a handful of times about their traumatic childhood, often describing their father as an evil monster. Apparently, their father would also continually his kids while they were growing up, and it got so bad that Kevin's brother Randy almost took the life of his father while the young boy was hiding in a closet, but he never opened the door. Although Kevin is a reprehensible human being, no boy deserves to grow up in such a horrifying environment. Next up is a K-pop idol whose secret is definitely out of the bag at this point. We all know just how strict and borderline harmful the K-pop industry is towards its stars, often restricting diets to near starvation in an attempt to get their already lean singers to lose weight, alongside 12 to 20 hours a day of dance practice. But one K-pop idol from the band Bang Bang has some dark underground secrets that only recently came to light. Seungri was sentenced last year to 3 years in prison for the crime of running an underground nightclub that bet heavily on foreign casinos where gambling is illegal. He was also charged with providing women to business executives for, services. Apparently, he's been doing this for years, and we only recently found out during a Korean military bust. Now it seems like sadly his K-pop days are over as he spends the next 3 years behind bars. Next up is Hollywood actor Casey Affleck. I'm surprised we haven't done this one yet, honestly. Known for movies like Manchester by the Sea and Gone Baby Gone, Affleck is a critic's best friend. But he's not everyone's best friend. In fact, Casey has been accused by multiple women of committing horrifying acts against them. Some say that he snuck into their bedrooms, others that when they refused his advances, he sent them violent and aggressive texts. Other women have said that he ordered a crew member to expose himself to this one woman. All of these allegations were attempted to be taken to court to be filed as multi-million-dollar lawsuits, but they were both settled for unknown amounts. Thanks to these settlements, we may never know if these accusations are true or not, but it seems really odd that not many people are talking about it these days. In fact, when asked about it, Casey brushes it off as hearsay and his dark past seems to be fading into secrecy once again. Second to first on our list is Oprah Winfrey. The talk show host who revolutionized the game, Oprah's name is synonymous with the monolithic empire she's built surrounding her image. She's known for her lovable, relatable, and welcoming personality, but her humble beginnings make her rise to fame all the more deserved. In fact, Oprah was born in Mississippi to a single teenager mom, and she grew up in extreme poverty. During her childhood, the cost of raising a baby became too much for the young mother, so she sent Oprah to go live with her father, or at least one of the men who she thinks might have been her father. During her time with her dad, Oprah's mom gave birth to 2 more babies, one of which was given up for adoption. The real kicker here is that Oprah only found out about her sister Patricia in 2010. While a gut reaction to this news may be to cast harsh judgment on Oprah's mother, it is important to remember that it is impossible to know what it is like unless you have been in her position. For those who have been, we think you understand the brevity of her decision. Last up is Nicolas Cage. Now, I guess it's not exactly a dark secret here, and I may be cheating a little bit, but I only just found this out when I was writing the script, and wow, wild. Anyways, Nicolas Cage is known for his fun and sometimes extremely cheesy acting in movies like Face Off and Ghost Rider. But what you may not know is that Nicolas Cage isn't even his real name. In fact, Cage's birth name is Nicholas Kim Coppola, and his uncle is the famed director Francis Ford Coppola. The name change resulted from his wish not to cash in on the fame associated with the Coppola name in Hollywood, though the actor did end up appearing in several of Francis's films. It is quite believable when thinking about it for a few seconds, as both talents are just as eccentric as the other. The principal difference is that Francis Ford Coppola's odd ideals gave the world masterpieces like The Godfather and Apocalypse Now, while Cage gifts audiences with wild overacting and melodrama.
Number 10. Guy Ritchie. Film director and Madonna's second ex-husband, Guy Ritchie, is a prominent relationship that she had throughout her career. The two met in the late 90s and they hit it off right away. The pair had a child in August of 2000 and were married not long after. He even ended up directing the music video that was so scandalous it was banned from MTV and VH1. The violent video, What It Feels Like for a Girl, featured shots of Madonna driving recklessly, robbing a guy at an ATM, and squirting police officers with a water gun. But things did not end well for the couple as they ultimately got divorced in 2008, and soon as it was publicly confirmed, the British tabloids had a field day when it came to pointing fingers about what went wrong in their relationship. There were rumors of Madonna having an affair with baseball star Alex Rodriguez, and the couple fought over adopting their son, David, from Malawi in 2006. And after that, the pop star was thrown from a horse on her 47th birthday, and she broke several bones. Guy basically abandoned her. Number 9. Puerto Rico. In 1993, Madonna was set to arrive in San Juan for a concert as a part of her girly show tour, but certain groups on the island were worried about Madonna's influence over the youth and demanded that the concert be cancelled. Even the Puerto Rican government agreed that the singer was a bad influence on the kids, but the concert went ahead. For all the controversy, the tickets sold out instantly, but on the evening of the concert, several religious groups started protesting by singing hymns around the fans. So how did Madonna respond? Well, in a show of defiance, she rubbed the Puerto Rican flag on her crotch, further outraging the government and the protesters. This incident really played into her image because at the time, the more dangerous she was, the more people were interested in her. Everything she did had repercussions. Still, the whole incident was very scandalous, so her new biopic will probably touch on everything that went down in Puerto Rico. Number 8. Condemned by the Pope. Madonna's 1989 video for Like a Prayer, which featured her dancing in front of burning crosses and doing a bunch of other things that were thought of as too risky for its time. The song was initially used in a differently themed Pepsi ad starring Madonna Madonna, and she got $5 million for the planned endorsement deal. But after the video garnered controversy, including condemnation from the Vatican, Pepsi cancelled its contract with the singer. Religious groups called for boycott of the song, and even Pope John Paul II spoke out against it. Quote, "The video is blasphemy and insult because it shows immorals inside a church. This would mark the start of Madonna's lifelong fight with the Vatican and her complicated relationship with Catholicism, which was only just beginning." But the way she responded to all this is what made her a true icon. She actually walked the red carpet the next day in a bright red dress carrying a Coke can, and Pepsi still let her keep that initial $5 million that she was going to be paid for the commercial. There's probably so much that went on behind the scenes of this stunt that we really need to find out. Number 7. Michael Jackson. Seeing the two massive icons in pictures together seems like a fever dream sometimes. Jackson and Madonna were reportedly briefly an item in the early 90s, and the Queen of Pop once revealed that she had the best date ever with Jackson. The entertainment industry is really quick to assume relationships between the world's biggest stars when they are seen together, but Madonna actually confirmed the two were a real item in a 1991 interview. She asked him if he would like to be her date to the Oscars, and he accepted. She followed it up by saying, quote, "And then, yes, he took me home. You wanna know what happened after that? I'm not gonna tell you." During a 2016 interview with James Corden on his carpool karaoke, Madonna revealed that she did enjoy a fling with Michael, but he was shy when they kissed, and she had to loosen him up with a glass of Chardonnay. But what happened during their tryst is something that she has avoided talking about for a really long time, so it's a very real possibility that she's finally ready to uncover exactly what happened between them. Number 6. Banned from the theater. This controversy is definitely one of the more recent ones that Madonna has been involved in, but it is nevertheless something that she might like to address in her biopic. She allegedly texted on her BlackBerry for the duration of a 2013 screening of 12 Years a Slave, resulting in her being banned from the Alamo Drafthouse theater chain. To make matters worse, when an audience member called her out on her behavior, she reportedly screamed, "It's for business," and called them an enslaver. Then in 2015, after she was caught texting from the front row of a performance of Hamilton, Lin-Manuel Miranda personally banned Madonna from all future performances. Jonathan Groff, who played King George in the original run, spoke to Vulture about the incident. Quote, "That bee was on her phone. You couldn't miss it from the stage. It was a black void of the audience in front of us, and her face was there perfectly lit by the light of her iPhone through 3/4 of the show. You can't make this stuff up, it's just too bizarre." I mean, she's a queen, but she's always been really problematic. Number 5. David Letterman. All celebrities have had their moments on live television, and Madonna has quite a few herself, but this one really takes the cake and deserves a place in her new film. On The Late Show with David Letterman, Madonna made one of the most memorable appearances on a talk show that made television history for how scandalous it was. The pop star came out ready to shock the world, cigar in hand and filter completely gone. David Letterman isn't easily fazed, but in 1994, Madonna managed to make him just the slightest bit uncomfortable. A minute into her appearance on The Late Show, the host began teasing Madonna about her sex life, saying, quote, "Kiss a guy in the audience," and she responded by calling him a sick F, before launching into a 20-minute long rant that was hardly PG. In fact, she said the F word a total of 14 times. And yes, there was even a moment where she told Letterman to smell her underwear. It wasn't until 1996 that she revealed why she behaved that way. Quote, "The way he introduced me was derogatory. So my whole thing was like, okay, if that's how you want to play it, you cannot beat me at this game." Well, it's safe to say that she certainly did. Number 4. The infamous kiss. Anyone who didn't live under a rock knows where they were the night that Madonna shared her infamous onstage kiss with Britney Spears and Christina Aguilera, live at the 2003 VMAs. It was perhaps one of the most famous moments of controversy, and Madonna's second major unscripted moment at the MTV VMAs. She performed Like a Virgin in front of a wedding chapel on stage, where she then kissed Britney Spears full on the mouth, and then Christina Aguilera right after that. The camera then cuts to Justin Timberlake's stern expression, which is hilarious because he was dating Britney at the time. The double kiss made it one of Madonna's most notorious performances of all time, and it's clear that she's been pushing the envelope when it comes to displaying her sexuality. It's just another reason she's been able to maintain her icon status for so long. Interestingly enough, in an interview about the VMAs several years later, she actually said that she wouldn't kiss Britney again. So it begs the question, what really happened between the two of them? Number 3. Sean Penn. The violent nature of Madonna and Sean Penn's relationship relationship was something that has mostly been speculation over the years. They first met on the set of Material Girl in 1985. Both of them had just gotten out of relationships and started off as friends. However, their platonic relationship quickly blossomed into a romantic one, and by August of 1985, the two tied the knot on Madonna's 27th birthday. Their relationship started off good, but things quickly got rocky due to Penn's unpredictable outbursts and temper. The actor was said to have a major jealous streak and would fly into fits of rage whenever he saw what looked like Madonna getting close to other men. Eventually, Madonna decided that she had had enough and she filed for divorce in December of 1987, later withdrawing the papers before filing again in January of 1989. It has been rumored that the singer suffered many years of verbal and physical violence from Penn, and that was the main reason for their divorce. But from what we know, it seems like the relationship was a traumatic one for Madonna, and the truth of it might need to be exposed in her biopic. Number 2, banned by MTV. The network just couldn't handle Madonna's Justify My Love music video, which included a racy group love scene with her then boyfriend Tony Ward and several other young men and women. But Madonna was not just talented on the microphone, she was also very business savvy, and since MTV banned the video, she went on to release it as a VHS single, which was the first song ever to be released in that format. She knew that people would pay to see something that was too scandalous for mainstream TV, and boy was she right. The video went platinum 4 times over and sold more than 1 million copies. But it wasn't just about making money for her. When asked about the video in an interview on Nightline, she said, quote, "If we're going to have censorship, let's not be hypocrites about it. Let's not have double standards. We already have these videos that display degradation to women and violence that are played 24 hours a day, but yet they don't want a video playing that deals with sex between 2 consenting adults?" That was so well said, it just goes to show you how ahead of her time she really was. And number 1, Tupac Shakur. Not many people know that Madonna and Tupac were in a secret romantic relationship. Yes, that's right, 2 of the biggest names in music history actually had a brief romance going on in the 90s. So we definitely do not think that this could be left out of the Madonna biopic. It all started when their paths crossed in the mid-90s and they were instantly drawn to each other. But the societal constraints of the time made it nearly impossible for them to break through the noise and explore their love for each other. The pop star had been famously tight-lipped about their romance and only confirmed it in March of 2015 that she as a rapper had been an item shortly before his death. But in July of 2017, a letter Tupac wrote to Madonna while at the Clinton Correctional Facility was put on auction and sold for more than $170,000. The letter dated all the way back to 1995 and delves into the factors behind their breakup and Tupac's innermost feelings about her. The whole thing reads like a Romeo and Juliet story in which star-crossed lovers have been torn apart due to political tensions, and not just as a result of their own decisions. Number 10, iCarly's stunt double. If you want to know something that proves the people at Nickelodeon only care about money, I've got a scandal for you that was almost swept under the rug entirely. In 2014, a stunt woman from iCarly claimed that the production ruined her career by recklessly dropping her from far too high above the ground, causing some really gruesome injuries. In a stunt gone wrong, Katina Waters was supposed to be dropped slowly down from the ceiling for an episode of iCarly in 2011. She was supposed to be slowly lowered to the ground while still attached to a wire. Instead, she claims that the person operating the descender machine dropped her without warning and she crashed to the floor. The medical consequences of the incident were pretty horrific. It caused severe injuries to her leg, including fractured bones and torn ligaments. But the long-term effects on her health were even worse for her career. Waters was a highly successful stunt actor who performed in dozens of TV shows and movies, but of course she missed out on a lot of work following the incident. Subsequently, she decided to sue the producer, Schneider's Bakery, plus Nickelodeon and MTV networks for pain, suffering, and loss of earnings. And she made the right decision, as it later emerged that it wasn't the first time something like that had happened on the show. Number 9, the GAC. After seeing countless celebrities being slimed on TV for years, there was an extremely high demand for Nickelodeon to release their iconic gooey green sludge to the public. This led the network to release what they called GAC into toy stores across the country in 1992, much to the delight of 90s kids everywhere. The product wasn't exactly slime that they had on the Nick shows, it was more like a squishy putty that made funny noises when you pressed it between your hands. Kids also loved the name GAC because not only was it onomatopoeia, but it also just sounded like how the product felt. However, the branding turned out to be a highly controversial decision, as the name itself was common street lingo for illicit street substances. In fact, it was literally a term for the substance that goes onto a spoon. The story goes that while someone on the Nick crew was working with the then nameless slime one day, they nicknamed it Gack, which became a naughty inside joke on set because of its meaning. Game show host Mark Summers was in on the joke too, and eventually started saying it live on air, but Nickelodeon's marketing department allegedly had no idea and just cluelessly went along with it. Number 8. The voice of Dora. The network had a really big mess on their hands when Caitlin Sanchez, the teenager who starred on Dora the Explorer until she reached puberty, alleged that when she made the deal with Nickelodeon to voice the iconic character, she was given just 22 minutes to sign the contract without an experienced lawyer. The young star did so under duress, with the alleged promise that she'd receive residuals for her work, plus money from merchandising. This was in 2007, years before Dora the Explorer was established as an $11 billion global brand. So in 2010, Caitlin sued Nickelodeon and MTV networks for making her sign what she believed was a terrible contract that conned her out of millions, specifically citing unpaid work hours, as well as being paid only $40 for promotional appearances. The legal battle made headlines throughout the world thanks to statements made by Caitlin's attorney that if Nickelodeon refuses to pay up by a certain date, he would expose their humiliating secrets. But the young voice actor ended up settling for $500,000, but then tried to re-sue because she and her family thought that the lawyer acted fraudulently and didn't tell her that most of the settlement would be eaten by taxes and lawyer fees. But to fans, the whole settlement just proved that the network certainly had something to hide. Number 7. Chris Savino. Once it was exposed, the massive scandal that was a PR nightmare for Nickelodeon was akin to the network's own version of Harvey Weinstein. In 2017, Nick was forced to fire one of its most prominent showrunners, Chris Savino, over allegations made by at least a dozen women. Savino, who has been in the business since the early 90s, previously worked on such animated shows as Dexter's Laboratory and the Powerpuff Girls, and was the creator of Nick's second highest rated kids show at the time, Loud House, which centers on a boy's life while dealing with a house full of sisters. According to Cartoon Brew, as many as 12 women came forward to accuse Savino of predatory behavior, including unwanted sexual advances and threats of blacklisting after the relationships with co-workers had ended. What's even more disturbing is that the site said that the reports date back at least a decade. One woman said that she didn't accept an offer to work at Nickelodeon simply because Savino worked there. She alleged that when they both worked for Disney, he sent her explicit text messages and photos, and once offered her a job in exchange for inappropriate things. And Walker Farrell, the director of BoJack Horseman, also came forward with her own Savino horror story from the early 2000s, when both of them worked at Cartoon Network. Just goes to show you how cases involving power and inappropriate behavior infect almost every corner of Hollywood. Number 6. Zoey 101. The show was a boarding school set dramedy that hit Nickelodeon in January of 2005. Starring as protagonist Zoe Brooks, Jamie Lynn Spears was reportedly brought on by its creator Dan Schneider, all because she looked a lot like her older sister and superstar Britney Spears. But little did fans know there was actually a scandal brewing behind the set, as its star was just 16 when she fell pregnant, which would have been a bombshell for the very PG show. In her memoir, Things I Should Have Said, Jamie Lynn Spears confessed that her team decided that her pop star sister should not be told about her pregnancy because it was too risky. Quote, "The entire Spears team was already caught up in my sister's PR difficulties, and everyone around me just wanted to make this issue disappear. From there, her family and management pulled her out of school until they could figure out what to do next, and even took away her phone for fear that the news would get out. As a result, the actress said that even her father stopped talking to her. But once the news was released, Nickelodeon immediately released a statement saying, 'We respect Jamie Lynn's decision to take responsibility in this sensitive and personal situation.' And after wrapping shooting for the 4th season of Zoey 101, the network cancelled the series altogether. Number 5. Jason Biggs. In the early seasons of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles on Nickelodeon, Jason Biggs could be heard voicing lead turtle Leonardo, but scandal quickly erupted at the network when it was revealed that his social media activity was offensive enough that there were many calls to Nickelodeon to protest his involvement with the show. So in 2014, after only 2 seasons, he was ultimately replaced by Seth Green on on the popular series, and for a good reason. Jason's Twitter in the 2010s was a PR nightmare. In fact, there didn't seem to be any topic too controversial for him to joke about, like a Bachelorette contestant who died, a plane crash, the Pope, women's basketball, and sexually explicit comments about the politician Paul Ryan's wife. But the jokes backfired big time when the official Ninja Turtles Twitter account gave a shout out to Jason's personal account and encouraged their followers to check it out. It's safe to say that the kid-friendly and PG network is not pleased with the immense backlash that they started receiving from parenting groups and conservative bloggers, eventually leading them to release a statement apologizing, while Fox News host Megyn Kelly called the American Pie actor a disgusting pig and called for him to be fired. Ultimately, the network responded to the pressure and gave Jason the boot. Number 4. Angelique Bates. The actress who was one of the original cast members on Nick's sketch comedy show All That exposed the reality behind the cameras when she spoke to the Shade Room in 2016. Angelique explains some of the horror she endured, such as physical, emotional, and mental mistreatment from her mother in front of producers who not only turned the other cheek, but strongly urged her to just accept the violence and remain silent. She said that she was only 12 years old when the nightmare began, and that the producers and cast members could hear her yelling, but nothing was done to help her. According to Angelique, Child Protective Services did eventually show up in 1996, but she said that the adults on set pressured her to stay silent. Possibly in an attempt to muddy the waters or save her own skin, Angelique's mother, Dee Bates, came forward in support of her daughter, although she tried to shift the blame onto the network. Whatever the case with her mother's questionable side of the story, the former child star also explained that she was pretty much released from her contract at age 15 and claimed that she was blackballed by the entertainment industry as a result. But to this day, Nickelodeon have never come forward with an official response to the accusations. Number 3. Victorious. Canadian actor Evan Jogia had his breakthrough role playing Beck Oliver in Victorious, but after Jeanette McCurdy's bombshell allegations regarding Dan Schneider, fans really started to question whether or not he had the same experience. In a recent TikTok video, Evan admitted that he did not actually remember filming the series at all, because he was blackout drunk almost every night. Quote, "When you don't remember a single plotline to a single Victorious episode, but you do remember going out partying every night." When one fan added that the show seemed like a fever dream to her, Evan just said, "Me too, and I was there." And when another fan asked, "So Beck was hungover all the time?" he just said yes. This admission was significant because in Jeanette's new memoir, she talks about the creator pressuring her to drink while she was underage, allegedly saying, quote, "The Victorious kids get drunk all the time. The iCarly kids are so wholesome. We need to give you guys a little edge." Sometime later, she claims that Schneider got into trouble with Nickelodeon for inappropriate behavior with the young cast and was not allowed to be near the actors anymore, meaning that he had to direct them from a separate control room. So it's entirely possible that he was creeping on more than just one actor. Number 2. Jeanette McCurdy. The iCarly star recently released her new memoir, which has been described as both heartbreaking and hilarious. The blunt title, "I'm Glad My Mom Died," shocked fans upon its release, because it reveals what really went on behind the cameras, something that up until now fans have only been able to really speculate about. Jeanette exposed her traumatic experiences on Nick, and the disturbing truth about how she was mistreated by her mother, who pushed her to be a child star, noting that her own persona that she was known for throughout her youth and her young adult life was all a front forced upon her by her mom, who in addition to everything else was extremely physically inappropriate with her. Jeanette also discusses the perils of young fame and reveals that she developed an eating disorder as a child, and talks about why she ultimately quit acting altogether. She also goes into great detail of numerous instances where she felt exploited as an actor, both on and off set. Describing the creator as mean-spirited, controlling, and terrifying, the former Nick star recalled a time when she was filming an episode of iCarly that he insisted that she wear a bikini instead of a one-piece swimsuit, which she was much more comfortable with. Number 1. Drake and Josh. This show was one of the most popular shows on Nickelodeon in the early 2000s. Starring Drake Bell and Josh Peck, the sitcom was one of the network's most successful projects from that time. So when the truth finally came out, fans were understandably left disillusioned and upset. Nobody knew that behind the scenes, Josh heavily struggled with addiction. Looking to feel better about himself, the actor explained in an interview that he lost 100 127 pounds in an 18-month time span while filming the show. But when that didn't bring him happiness, he admitted that he turned to alcohol and illicit substances for help. But that was nothing compared to the revelation that his co-star was caught grooming young fans. In July of 2021, Drake Bell pled guilty to attempted endangering of children and disseminating harmful materials to juveniles after a young woman came forward and accused him of predatory behavior. The 19-year-old, who chose to remain anonymous, claimed that he began talking to her when she was 12. The actor managed to get away with 2 years on probation and 200 hours of community service. But at 36 years old, Drake Bell's reputation is now irreparably tarnished.
Number 10. There are substances on set. Actors using substances on set is nothing new. A lot of people are pretty sure that Seth Rogen smokes his herbs and spices on set constantly, something he's admitted to doing before, but not as often as the internet makes it out to be. However, in the earlier days of Hollywood, substances were not only done on set, they were encouraged by the studios, who would regularly feed their actors their narcotic of choice on set. In fact, John Belushi from the Blues Brothers was such an avid consumer of No-No Snow that the price of powder was built into the budget for the 1980 flick. No wonder he's in sunglasses all day. If he took them off, he'd look like he just got pepper sprayed. Or something. I don't know what happens when you do that stuff. I'm a good boy, I promise. Facts are that this still takes place to this day. Now, I have signed a few NDAs in my time as a locations PA, so I cannot specify who does what and where, but the amount of celebrities that surprisingly love that No-No Snow is astonishing. No wonder so many people deliver great performances. It's because they amp themselves up in a bathroom for 5 minutes before every scene. Number 9. Jim Carrey's origins. A Canadian legend, Jim Carrey is considered one of the greatest modern comedians of all time. He famously released 3 films in the year 1995, Dumb and Dumber, The Mask, and Ace Ventura, all of which made millions at the box office and still hold up to this day, except for a couple scenes in Ace Ventura, but we won't get into that. As many know, comedians tend to have a pretty rough backstory, as the best comedy comes from a place of pain. Over the years, Jim has come clean about his strange but fun upbringing. His family struggled financially, and he grew up watching his mother struggle with depression, which he claims to have been passed down to him. Despite his energy, he was a bit of a recluse growing up, and apparently he spent hours in his room making faces in the mirror instead of hanging out with his friends. After dropping out of high school to work a full-time job, Jim and his family were actually forced to live in a Volkswagen van together, becoming homeless for a short period of time. He went on to attempt a career in comedy, at first to minimal success, but of course he was able to find his footing and made his place in comedy history. Number 8. There are ties to the mafia. The film industry may be a multi-billion-dollar business, but where did they get that first bit of cash from to get where they are today? Well, apparently Hollywood has a dark history that's tied to organized crime families. The Trocadero, or the Troc, was a famous spot on the Sunset Strip back in the day, with many celebrities coming through the doors, along with studio heads and notorious mob leaders like Mickey Cohen, who was a regular at the establishment. He was a man who rubbed elbows with many of Hollywood's A-list. In fact, the film Texas Chainsaw Massacre, released in the 1970s, was released by Bryanston Pictures, a company heavily linked to several crime families. While the production studio ended up going bankrupt, Hollywood is still filled with many people doing secret deals. I bet all of the money in my savings account that they had something to do with this Barbenheimer nonsense. Now that's not a lot of money, but the mob runs the memes, confirmed. Number 7. Woody Harrelson's father. Woody is best known in Hollywood as the wildest wild child ever to exist. He eats raw meat, he's an eco-crusader, he's a protester against violence, and an advocate for the legalization of herbs and spices in the United States. He's loved on screen, but did you know that his father took people out for money? And I'm not talking about on dates. That's a different job. Charles Harrelson was sentenced to 2 lifetime sentences for the slaying of a federal judge in San Antonio. And prior to that charge, Charles had previously been acquitted for the slaying of Alan Berg, who was a carpet salesman. And he was convicted of the slaying of Sam DeGalia. He's not the greatest hitman of all time. His track record will prove that. The evidence shows that Charles is not the greatest hitman of all time. Woody doesn't speak much of his father these days, opting instead to leave his family's trouble in the past. He does, however, say that the one piece of advice that his father ever gave him that he still uses to this day is always keep an open mind. Charles knew all about opening minds with bullets. Number 6, they have backups of A-listers. There have been many rumors over the years that Hollywood likes to clone their best and brightest on the off chance that they'll need them again following their ultimate demise. According to the internet, Paul Rudd actually got to star alongside his clone in the show Living with Yourself. Now, Paul has of course claimed that the performance was achieved with CGI and filming one character one day and another the next, but Paul Rudd is also 54 years old and looks like that, so something is not right about this. Now, there is a theory out there that the celebrity elites are made up of lizard people who take the form of actors and singers to influence us, and Paul is thought to be one of those lizard people. Now, I don't believe this theory, I'm just sharing something cool that I found on the internet, but it would be awesome if there were two Paul Rudds. In fact, that would be the most chill way to find out that cloned people exist. Just Paul being like, "Hi, I'm Paul," and "Hi, I'm also Paul. Everything's gonna be fine." Number 5, Mark Wahlberg should be in jail. Marky Mark and the Funky Bunch hit the rap scene in 1991, and despite sounding like the title of a cheesy kids show, the crew had a small following and garnered a bit of success. Enough for leading man Mark Wahlberg to be spotted and picked up by Hollywood to star in The Corruptor, a 1999 action flick that sees Mark play the leading man Danny Wallace, a police officer who attempts to stop substance trafficking and corruption by the Chinese triads. He's had a successful acting career that has recently been declining in quality, but he's still acting and he looks jacked at the age of 52, so please don't hurt me, Mark. Infinite was just hard to watch. Growing up in Boston, he was the youngest of 9 children and was relentlessly bullied by his fellow siblings. His parents divorced when he was very young, and he became addicted to no-no snow by the time he was in his mid-teens. He dropped out of high school and was eventually arrested when he was just 18 for attempting to slay 2 Vietnamese men. Apparently, he was walking home late one night under the influence of a hallucinogenic narcotic when he spotted the men. Close friends at the time have confirmed that Mark had a racial biased upbringing, which caused him to be instantly aggressive towards anyone who just wasn't white. He attempted to swing a large log at them, which did make contact and knocked one of the men unconscious. He was eventually released after serving only 45 days of his 2-year prison sentence, and he vowed to change his life. Now, so far, he's kept that promise, and I can personally confirm that he's very polite and patient, because he actually watched a movie at the theater I used to work at. He does travel with a crew of 5 people at all times surrounding him. It's a bit intimidating, just a little. Number 4, Margot Robbie may be crazy. Margot may be a perfect Barbie on screen, but apparently behind the scenes, she might be a psychopath. In a recent interview with BBC Radio 1, Margot reminisced about a little prank that she pulled on an old babysitter that involved kitchen cutters, which is the word I'm forced to use for the thing that you cut tomatoes with. Apparently, Margot had just gotten a new babysitter, a much older woman that just apparently wasn't as cool as Talia. So she hatched a plan of sweet, sweet revenge. After a particularly trying day where Margot refused to take a bath, she decided to kick the old lady out for good. She grabbed ketchup, her stabby jabby things, and laid face down on the kitchen tiles. You know, the old "I've been stabbed" routine. As you may expect, her babysitter walked in, took one look, screamed, and just ran out the door. Traumatized, the woman quit and Margot successfully got her old babysitter back. But that is messed up. That is so messed. And Margot was like young when she did this. Like, it's a very dark place for someone's mind to go so early on in their life. Has she secretly been a little bit crazy this whole time? It might explain why she was so good as Harley Quinn. Number 3, Tim Allen's hobbies. Tim Allen is the voice of Buzz Lightyear and the star of ABC's popular sitcom Home Improvement, which premiered in 1991. While he may have played a family man on TV, many fans may not know that Tim was a smuggler of no-no snow in the early 1970s. According to Tim, he got mixed up with some bad people back in the day while he was selling certain substances on the street for a few bucks. In 1978, Tim was arrested in Kalamazoo Battle Creek International Airport, what a name, and was caught with more than 650 grams, 1.4 pounds of no-no snow. Unfortunately for Tim, state legislators had just passed a law that tied a life sentence to any conviction of selling 650 grams or more. Like, as he was being arrested, there was a guy in a car with him like, "And if you have 650 grams, you're a goner." However, that sentence was never served, as it was revealed that Tim was set up by an undercover police officer who had been following him for months. months. Due to this and Tim's cooperation in providing the names of fellow dealers to the authorities, it led to him receiving a lighter conviction that allowed him to be sentenced in a federal court instead of a state, so being able to ignore that new policy entirely. His information led to 20 arrests and the sentencing of a major dealer. Can that be a movie, please? Number 2. CGI'd before they pass. Unfortunately, computers are not only making everyone's lives easier when it comes to looking cool on screen, but they're also being used in some of the creepiest ways ever. So, the first example of someone being CGI'd into a movie following their passing was Carrie Fisher, and I do mean first to have a speaking line and be a significant character. Rise of Skywalker did not heavily feature her, but the fact that they had that ready to go so fast after she passed, it was super unnerving. They pulled this with Stan Lee too in one of his last on-screen cameos, and Marvel was going to do this with Chadwick Boseman in the sequel to Black Panther, but the studio changed their minds last minute, and thank the good lord. But not only is Hollywood prepared to CGI their people into movies, they seem to have inside knowledge of when it's gonna happen. With the new addition of AI into the world of film, we're close to Hollywood not even needing actors anymore and just asking the computer to make Tom Cruise do stunts. Deepfake technology is also getting better and better, making it extremely difficult to tell if a video is authentic or just some CGI shenanigans. Nope, still just me. Number 1, they're all broke. That's right, despite it being one of the most lucrative industries in the world, most of Hollywood's actors, writers, directors aren't as well off as we may think. Unless you've been living under a rock for the past month, most of Hollywood is closed right now as its staff are on strike. Some of the toppest of tier actors have joined their crew in solidarity, not stopping until Hollywood's producers and big budget studios start sharing the money that they make. Actor Sean Gunn gave an interview this last week where he mentions working on a show currently streaming on Netflix, a show that has made over $4 million in residuals, of which he's received basically nothing. This type of financial woe extends to a ton of people in Hollywood, and I just wanted to take this moment to wish luck to anyone out there on the picket lines. Hollywood, pay your people, and everyone holding a sign or waiting for the strike to end, get what you're worth and get back to making the world a better place.
Coming in at number 10, Peter Pan. Peter Pan is a wistful film about never growing up, but instead remaining young in Neverland amongst the Lost Boys and Captain Hook. Well, let me ruin that for you. Peter Pan kidnaps children. Yeah, I went there. This theory goes that Peter Pan is actually a deranged psychopath who kidnaps lost boys and kills them before they can grow up, because as we know, no one can be old in Neverland. To make things even crazier, the theory continues by saying that Hook is actually a lost boy who managed to escape from Peter's grasps, and that is why he is hellbent on killing him. Whoa. Coming in at number 9, Kristoff. Now this one is just dark. As we know in Frozen, Kristoff has a loyal reindeer friend named Sven. They shared an adorable relationship and we root for them throughout. So what is the theory? Well, the theory goes that Kristoff is wearing the skinned pelt of Sven's mother. Yep. I told you this theory was dark. As we know, Kristoff and Sven grew up together, and Kristoff wears a coat made out of reindeer fur. Sven could smell his mum on Kristoff, or weirder still, Sven thinks Kristoff is his mum. Weird. In at number 8, Aladdin. Now, it is widely acknowledged that Aladdin takes place thousands of years ago, yet some fans aren't too sure about that. One theory goes that the film is actually set in the future. The evidence? Well, in one scene, the genie states, 10,000 years will not give you such a crick in the neck. Not only that, but how is it that the genie knows modern day references such as Arnold Schwarzenegger and Goofy? Makes far more sense for the film to actually occur 10,000 years in the future, when no one would ever think twice about seeing a flying rug. Just saying. In at number 7, Ariel's mum. Ariel's mum was murdered by Captain Hook. Say it ain't so. If you've ever watched Peter Pan, you might have noticed the mermaid swimming around Neverland. Now, many have pointed out that one looks a whole lot like the Little Mermaid's Ariel. While some have said it could perhaps be the princess herself, others have theorized that there is a far more logical conclusion. It is in fact Ariel's mother. In the director video, Ariel's Beginning, we learn that her mother was killed by pirates. And we know from Peter Pan, Captain Hook and the mermaids kinda hate each other. So could it be that Hook slayed Ariel's mother? Certainly makes a lot of sense. Coming in at 6, Cars. So this is quite a famous theory at this point. This one claims that all Pixar films take place in the same universe, specifically that Cars exists in a post-apocalyptic world. It is theorized that people made a fateful mistake of providing vehicles to AI, and a hostile takeover ensued. Humankind was then killed off, with the rest of the survivors fleeing the planet, thus paving the way for WALL-E. With the absence of humans, Cars took over, adopting human personalities and resulting in the film that we see today. What do you guys think though? In at 5, Car was Dead. Up is a heartwarming yet devastating film that had audiences in tears within the first 10 minutes. After the loss of his wife, Carl attaches balloons to his house and sets off on an incredible adventure, dealing with his grief along the way. Now the theory goes that Carl's adventure was actually a journey into the afterlife after passing away in his sleep. The evidence? A house rising up to the sky, a Boy Scout who seems more like a guardian angel, a talking dog who wants to eat squirrels, a villain who wants to stop the pair with the help of hellhounds. Yes, it's sad, but it's comforting to know that Carl was actually reuniting with his wife. I don't know though, what do you guys think? I'm not sure I believe that one. Coming in at number 4, Andy's mum. Andy's mum, aptly named Andy's mum, may actually be the real villain of the Toy Story films. Well, kinda. Hear me out. The theory goes that Andy's mum was the original owner of Jessie, the rootin' tootin' cowgirl. If you remember in Jessie's flashback of how she ended up discarded, her owner Emily had given her away after getting older, no longer wanting to play with her. With this information, many have been quick to assume that Andy's mum was Emily. I mean, we have never learned her name, so it could very well be a possibility. Not only that, but in the original Toy Story, Andy wears a human-sized Jessie hat, prior to Jessie even appearing in Toy Story 2. We can only assume it was his mum's. Also in the same Jessie flashback, you can see the human-sized hat on Emily's bed. I mean, case in point, theory confirmed. Coming in at 3, Gaston. Now this theory is just plain tragic. The theory goes that if you look closely at the beginning of Beauty and the Beast, you will see a familiar looking doe near the stream, which many people have been quick to point out looks a whole lot like Bambi's mother. As we know, Bambi's mother was shot, and many fans have theorized that Gaston was the hunter who shot her. I mean, we never did get to see the killer, and we know that a lot of our favorite Disney films exist in the same universe. Still don't believe me? Well, why don't you take a look at the decapitated head that hangs on the tavern wall in Beauty and the Beast. Look familiar? Coming in at 2, Boo. As you can imagine, Boo was never the same after Sully walked out on her during Monsters Inc. I mean, how could she be? A poor impressionable girl abandoned. Now this theory goes that Boo had a mental breakdown as a result of the abandonment, and then learned how to time travel. Because why not? The theory goes on to explain that during her time traveling around Monstropolis with Mike and Sully, Boo picked up a few tricks and discovered more about the workings of the magical doors. With her newfound knowledge, she ended up traversing space and time, winding up in the world of Brave, transforming herself into the witch we see in the film. I mean, just take a look at the witch's workshop and you'll see what I mean. The signs are all there. And finally, in at number 1, Nemo is dead. Sad. Finding Nemo is a touching tale of a father and son and the lengths any parent will go in order to protect and save their children. However, what if I were to tell you that Nemo was dead the entire time, and that Marlin was actually hallucinating most of the events that unfolded in Finding Nemo? This theory insists that Nemo actually died during the same attack that killed his mother and siblings, and that the rest of the film follows Marlin attempting to cope with the tragedy of losing everyone you love. And if you don't believe me, there is legitimate evidence to support this theory. Marlin's journey is essentially an allegory for the 5 stages of grief. Denial occurs when Marlin doesn't want Nemo to go to school because he isn't ready. Anger occurs when Marlin yells at Nemo for swimming out too far. Bargaining when he meets Dory, the shark, and the turtles in order to find Nemo. Depression occurs when he watches Nemo get flushed down the toilet. And acceptance when Marlin finally learns to let go of the past and changes his ways. And on top of that, did you guys know that Nemo is actually Latin for nothing? So, there you go.
Number 10, an advocate for Maui. Oprah has been claiming to be many things since this Maui backlash thing has started. A good boss, a charitable woman, and an advocate for the island of Maui. By starting this fund and donating her spare millions, she's made her mark in the public as a woman who cares. So much so that she's asking you to give her your money. Isn't that nice? As mentioned in previous videos, Oprah would not care about Maui or its people if she didn't have a vested stake on the island. Oprah has had property in Maui for quite some time, being almost a second home to her. When the fire started raging, she started fundraising. Think about all of the things that have happened in the past few years. We all forgot about Australia being set on fire in 2020. A lot of Western Canada was on fire earlier this year, and some parts of Florida have been underwater for a long time, and they just kind of live with it. Yet Oprah has dedicated her time and money to helping out the area where she has a vacation home. Do with that what you will. Number 9. The NDAs. Confidentiality agreements are not uncommon in the world of Hollywood. Marvel will literally track you down if you say anything about their movies to anyone. In Kitty Kelly's tell-all book about Oprah, the author mentions there were confidentiality agreements that co-workers and guests were made to sign. This included everyone from Tom Cruise to the guy who made his breakfast in the morning. Over 500 staff members were forced to sign these documents, with one former employee, Elizabeth Cody, trying to write a book about her time working for Oprah, but she was eventually stopped by the courts, still being tied to the agreement. The NDAs were not meant to be a way to just keep show secrets safe, but any and all of Oprah's secrets as well. According to Elizabeth, the document was signed by almost everybody in Oprah's life, and she may have had this brand of sweetness and kindness, but that it was just not how she was. Elizabeth felt that she was in Oprah's pocket after she signed the paperwork. In 2010, there was even a lawsuit filed against Oprah and her company from a training performance center that was claiming that they were fired for violating the terms of her agreement, but all they did was just advertise that they were doing stuff for her show, so I'm not sure what's wrong there. Number 8. Diva. On air, Oprah is portrayed as this wholesome, sweet lady, but according to her stepmother, there's actually this unknown side to Oprah, hidden from fans for years. According to Barbara, Oprah is one of the most controlling people that you're ever gonna meet. She claims that Oprah does not allow herself and her husband to stay at Oprah's home whenever they try to visit, which means that they have to stay in hotels with money out of their own pockets. Barbara also said that Oprah was very quick to anger when it came to her staff especially, with a lot of people being fired over the years left and right for the littlest things. But that's not all. Despite being a billionaire, Barbara allows Oprah to stay at her home when she visits, which she just complains about the entire time. The first time she ever stayed there, Oprah allegedly complained that her bed sheets weren't 1,000 threads and that her bath towel wasn't big enough, but that's fair. This woman has billions of dollars to do literally anything she wants, and what she wants to do is make her family feel like a burden to the world. Number 7. Controversial beliefs. Oprah has had plenty of controversial people onto her show, from so-called medical experts to psychologists to celebrities. Whatever's good for TV, it's good for Oprah. One particular incident that caused a ton of backlash for Oprah was when she did an interview with Suzanne Summers. She was brought onto the show to share her beauty secrets on how she was able to look so young. According to Summers, this treatment that she does on a regular basis would help people. She claimed that she rubs estrogen cream into her skin on one arm and smears progesterone into the other arm. Progesterone is just a fancy way of saying steroids. She also claimed that she took 60 supplements and vitamins a day, 40 in the morning and 20 before bed. What really stirred the pot was that this woman claimed to be a health expert and self-help author, but surprise surprise, doctor, she was not. Medical experts started bashing Oprah, claiming that this type of extreme hormone therapy was actually the cause of several diseases and illnesses, like cancer. Despite Suzanne's claims that her specially made non-FDA approved bioidenticals were natural and safe, they were actually just synthetic conventional hormones that you could buy from a pharmacy. A little label smacked on the front. Oprah did everything in her power to sell this idea to her audience, believing 100% that these methods were useful, even claiming to have used the methods to make herself feel incredible. So Oprah would rather risk her audience getting cancer than telling them the truth. Solid. Number 6. The free cars. Who could forget Oprah's famous words? You get a car, you get a car, everybody got a car. The moment was historical on her series and was parodied time and time again, and it still does to this day. However, what a lot of people do not know is that it wasn't as simple as here's some car keys, go have fun. That would be insane. No, when someone gives you anything on television, especially if it's free, there's a catch. For Oprah's audience, the catch was that if they wanted to drive away in their brand new car, they'd have to pay over $7,000 in taxes first. While Oprah Studio would cover the sales tax and registration for the cars, their audience members were given a choice to either pay $7 grand and take the car, or just simply keep that cash instead. The famous moment she shouted this on the show featured 11 real teachers who were, according to Oprah, in desperate need of a new car. They, along with the audience members, received keys in a box on camera that Oprah claimed to be for their new cars. Everything has a catch though, even now. For someone who was known for being charitable and generous, the word free really does mean something different to Oprah. Number 5. The fabricated memoirs. This is a time when Oprah kind of ruined someone's life when she brought them onto onto her show. Oprah launched her book club in 1996, a reading encouraging segment from her talk show that turned any book that she chose into a bestseller. In September 2005, Winfrey picked A Million Little Pieces, a brutal and painful memoir by James Frett about his years-long struggle with substance control issues. A Million Little Pieces became the best-selling nonfiction book of that year, and Frey was asked to appear on her talk show to discuss the book that Oprah called gut-wrenching. However, the following year, a news outlet ran a very expositive article about Frey after it was discovered that he made up or juiced large portions of his memoir. For example, there is a section of the book that tells a story of Frey surviving a fatal train crash that took the lives of 2 teenagers. Well, he was never on that train and he didn't have anything to do with that situation. He just wrote about it and was like, I was there. Weeks after the article broke, Oprah asked Frey to return to the show, where he faced livid viewers and an even more livid Oprah. She told James that she felt duped and betrayed, which was a feeling that was shared by her audience and millions of readers around the world. When she asked James why he felt the need to lie to herself and her readers, he tried everything, making every excuse he could think of, and he claimed that he altered a lot of details, but that the overall plot was real. Well, the studio audience responded with a massive wave of boos, gasps, and groans, and Winfrey later apologized for the mistreatment from her audience, because that wasn't her intention. But the damage was already done, and this dude's career as a writer is non-existent. Number 4. Lance Armstrong. 7-time Tour de France winner Lance Armstrong has gone down in history as a man who's unable to ride a bike without chemical training wheels. In an interview with Oprah Winfrey in 2013, Lance was brought on to discuss the allegations floating around regarding his status as a Tour de France winner. Several sources claimed that Lance had to take performance-enhancing substances to win each and every race, as well as a type of transfusion involving the red life juice that flows inside all of us. Armstrong went on air and fessed up to every single thing that people were claiming he had done. However, he did deny the notion that he was like a mastermind who would control his teammates and force them to join in his extracurricular activities. But amidst his admission of guilt, say that 10 times fast, there was a moment where he tried to pin the situation on his battle with cancer. He wraps it up by saying that he should have tried harder to cancel the culture rather than to create a problem. Well, unfortunately for him, he was stripped of all 7 Tour de France titles and has since lived in exile among the cycling community. Number 3. Where's the beef? In spring of 1996, the United Kingdom apparently experienced an outbreak of bovine spongiform encephalopathy, or mad cow disease, since I can't pronounce that last word. According to the FDA, the disease destroys cows' central nervous system, and if humans eat the infected meat, you get zombies that can't. No, you can contract a deadly variant called Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease, probably named after the first dude who got the disease. During the mad cow scare, the Oprah Winfrey Show booked Howard Lyman. The former cattle rancher had adopted a vegetarian lifestyle, and he went to work for the Humane Society's Eating with Co-Science Animal Welfare campaign, and he appeared on the show to discuss the threat of mad cows to America. He pointed out that feeding the remains of mad cow to infected cattle or other animals could have facilitated the spread, and that a lot of that was happening in the US right then and there. Oprah was stunned and vowed that she would never eat another burger ever again. Well, it turns out her influence and her millions of viewers were so large that only a few hours after the episode aired and she declared that she wasn't eating hamburgers ever again, the price of beef stock plummeted, staying at an all-time low for 2 months. In fact, one Texas rancher lost an estimated $6.7 million and organized a class action lawsuit against Oprah and her show for talking trash about beef. After a 6-week trial, she won, leaving one dude with no farm and out hundreds of thousands of dollars in legal fees. Number 2. Trespasser. So, there's a video circulating the internet that a lot of people are interpreting as a direct message to Oprah Winfrey. Jason Momoa released a video on his Instagram a few weeks ago urging tourists not to come to Maui as the place was on fire and, they didn't need anybody's help. He claimed that he appreciated anyone sharing love for the people of Maui and continued to say that there was someone trying to scam people out of money that was pretending to be him online. After sharing links to several sites that were directly linked to putting money into the pockets of the people of Maui, fans decided to focus on the bit about people staying away. Now, at the same time that this was happening, Oprah and The Rock had announced the People's Fund of Maui, and the thing was that caused a lot of backlash for Oprah. And in Jason's video, he does not include a link to the charity and doesn't even acknowledge its existence. He has since spoken about the charity, but has never actually said the names Oprah or Dwayne out loud. People are just putting 2 and 2 together though, and the internet has decided that Jason Momoa has called Oprah Winfrey a trespasser. Number 1. Whoopi Goldberg. In author Kitty Kelly's unauthorized Oprah biography, Kelly claims that Whoopi Goldberg became a persona non grata, or an unwelcome person in Oprah's life, after Whoopi was nominated for an Oscar for her role in The Color Purple. The book noted that following the honor, the comedian never appeared on Oprah's show again, and was noticeably shunned from her 2006 Legends Ball. It wasn't until Oprah invited the entire cast of The Color Purple onto the show that the so-called feud was addressed. It turns out that Oprah had actually ran into Whoopi at Tyler Perry's party sometime after the 2006 snub. Goldberg confronted Oprah, leading to a hilariously adorable moment where Oprah asked why Whoopi was mad at her, to which Whoopi was like, "I'm not mad at you, I thought you were mad at me, what's going on here?" They mutually agreed that they really should have just picked up the phone a long time ago and figured the whole thing out and settled the dispute.
Number 10 is Joe Jonas. Jonas Brothers Joe Jonas spoke with Wonderland magazine in May 2019 about the struggles of being a Disney Channel star alongside his brothers. Joe made it clear how Disney was a saving grace for the trio when he said, quote, "When we were getting started, we were in a position at one point where we were without a label and we didn't really know what the next steps were going to be. And Disney reached out with a huge opportunity for us to be signed by them and work on a TV show. This was kind of a saving grace for us in that point of our career, and we jumped on that opportunity." But still, Joe went on to say, quote, "As you get older and you're a young adult and you're still on the Disney Channel, that can feel a little uncomfortable. Creatively, you can feel like you're a little boxed in and you can't really expand and grow. Lyrically, what you're going through in that time in your life, you have to protect your audience by only writing what Disney would approve. It was a little bit tricky as we got older, that's for sure. But that's just the music." While chatting with Vulture way back in 2013, Joe called out the Disney Channel for its apparently terrible writing and strict rules for their film projects. He said, quote, "It just ended up being some weird slapstick humor that only a 10-year-old would laugh at. They took out the kissing scene that Nick had. I had to shave every day because they wanted me to pretend like I was 16 when I was 20. When the show was done, I cut my hair off and grew as much of a beard as I could. We went along with it at the time because we thought Disney was our only real shot, and we were terrified that it could all be taken away from us at any moment. Now that is the truth of the matter. Disney child stars are all terrified of having Disney pull the rug out from under them, but that'll become more obvious as we continue on." At number 9 today is Miley Cyrus. Miley Cyrus was probably one of the most popular of the Disney stars with Hannah Montana, where she played a dual life. While the popularity of her show is a huge reason for her popularity now, that doesn't mean it's all peaches and cream. Speaking with Marie Claire back in 2015, the actress and singer explained how being Hannah Montana impacted her mental health, saying, quote, "I was told for so long what a girl is supposed to be from being on Hannah Montana. I was made to look like someone that I wasn't, which probably caused some body dysmorphia because I had been made pretty every day for so long, and then when I wasn't on that show, I was like, who the F am I?" That really spells out the effects of being a child star. In a February 2019 interview on the RuPaul What's the Tea podcast, Miley elaborated on her disillusion with herself when she said, quote, "I didn't really get to be a kid very much because I worked so much, but I wanted that. Since the last record, my last record was called Younger Now, and it says, even though it's not who I am, I'm not afraid of who I used to be. That was my epiphany." Number 8, Dylan Sprouse. If you weren't aware, Cole and Dylan Sprouse were two Disney Channel heavyweights with The Sweet Life of Zack and Cody and The Sweet Life on Deck. But instead of the network pulling the rug out from under them, it was actually the twins that turned their back on Disney. For some pretty understandable reasons too. Dylan Sprouse revealed the real reason why he and his twin brother, Cole Sprouse, left the network while speaking with Vulture in December 2017. Dylan spoke about how the pair had, quote, "a really awesome idea for where the show needed to go. But when they brought that idea to the higher ups at Disney, their idea was ultimately turned down." Speaking on that in the same interview, he said, quote, "We were 18. If that isn't old enough to know exactly what the show needs, then, well, I would beg to disagree. I don't think Disney were willing to work with us really ever, so we stopped the show." And honestly, that's kind of punk as hell. Stick it to the man, Dylan. Good job. Number 7, Bella Thorne. Bella Thorne may be one of the most outspoken ex-Disney stars. During a February 2021 interview with Fox News, she said, quote, "There are definitely a lot of pressures in the Disney eye to be so perfect, and I think that's where Disney in a sense goes wrong, because they make their kids seem perfect. That image is very difficult. It's also never been me. I always just like to do what no one else is doing. She would go on to say, quote, little kids growing up don't need to see perfect people. Kids need to see real people. They need to see diversity. They need to see intriguing. Bella opened up about another Disney instance during a podcast interview, which is completely different, called High Low with M. Rada in December 2022. Recalling a time when, well, quote, I almost got fired off the Disney Channel because I was 14 and I wore a two-piece on the beach. According to her, there was a fan that got a photo, and when that photo went into the World Wide Web, people began to put Disney under pressure to fire the actress. She said, quote, obviously Disney didn't fire me, but also they were like, hey, we're getting a lot of heat for this. Everyone's getting a lot of heat for this because you're in a bikini on the beach. Which is when apparently they said, quote, so she needs to make sure she goes out in board shorts and a loose t-shirt next time she's at the beach. She continued on, quote, they said, you're lucky Bella has such a fan base that we can't afford to fire her at this moment in time, but if she does one more other thing, we'll fire her. But I didn't even talk about when a Disney casting director also fired Bella because they thought the 10-year-old was flirting with them. What even is that? What? Number 6, Stephanie Scott. While she had released music and acted a little bit before her time at Disney, Stephanie Scott played the role of Lexi Reed on Disney Channel's Ant Farm from 2011 to 2014, which won her a second Young Artist Award and introduced her to a wider audience. While on Disney, she also recorded a bunch of Disney Channel promotional singles, which were released between 2008 and 2012. However, despite her success and time with Disney, in a 2015 interview with BuzzFeed, the actress threw some major shade at the network. She claimed that her role as Lexi Reed forced her to, quote, sugarcoat everything all the time. She said, quote, that's one of the hardest things, not being able to express myself in a certain way or being stuck having to promote something or say something I don't believe in. It's kind of hard after a while when you are feeling things and having a rough time in your personal life and you can't express your emotions through your work, which heavily echoes the feelings of the other stars on this list. Stephanie explained, quote, I wanted to tell stories of troubled girls where everything isn't perfect all the time. I didn't want it to stop there and be labeled as a Disney girl. I quickly realized I wanted to do more. If you've been on a Disney show, people target you as being the sitcom funny girl who can't take herself seriously and doesn't really have true emotions because they have to be perfect and pure, not shattered and torn in any way. Number 5, Demi Lovato. Demi Lovato opened up about her time on the network to Harper's Bazaar in March 2020 and admitted that they had a hard time with the Disney workload, which, as a kid, was likely way more than normal. They covered themselves at first by saying, quote, I'm grateful for the opportunities that I got, but despite that, they also said, quote, do I wish that I'd had more downtime? Yes. I think when you are a teenager and you're given your big break, you'll do anything to make it happen. I do feel that a lot of the way some of my life was handled and lived led me to kind of having a bit of a downfall just because I was so overworked and I wasn't dedicating enough time to my mental health or my personal life. Now, while she didn't so much speak about the restrictiveness of the network like the other stars have, she spoke more about the effect of imposing a celebrity lifestyle onto a growing human being, and in a separate interview with Billboard from 2016, Demi joked that they had PTSD after leaving the channel. They added, quote, we joked around that it was Disney high, except we were all shooting shows and really overworking ourselves. Number 4, Selena Gomez. Just like a lot of other Disney stars, Selena Gomez, who got her Disney fame from being the main character of Disney Channel's Wizards of Waverly Place, felt that her time at Disney started to paint her as someone who she wasn't, like almost everyone else on this list. When speaking with the New York Times in 2015 about moving away from that image, she said, quote, I'm growing and changing. I was in a relationship and I was being managed by my parents and I was still under Hollywood and Disney. And I was being held to this expectation of being the good girl. She continued, I knew deep down that this wasn't what I wanted to do. Being exhausted, forcing something that wasn't right, even in my personal life, I had to have moments where I was crying and I was like, why am I not in love with what I do? I was forced to get very uncomfortable for a while in order to make the decisions I made. Now, while that seems pretty much par for the course here, quite some time later during the Television Critics Association press panel in August 2021, she elaborated on what I personally think is the the main issue with becoming a Disney child star. She said, quote, "I signed my life away to Disney at a very young age and I didn't know what I was doing because, you know, she was a kid." Number 3. Coco Jones. Coco Jones starred in the Disney Channel original movie Let It Shine, which is where she found her primary Disney Channel successes. But she also had recurring roles on 2 Disney series, So Random and Good Luck Charlie, competed in Radio Disney's The Next Big Thing singing competition, and signed with Hollywood Records music label, which is owned by Disney. But then, kind of as soon as it all started, it began to unwind. In a 2020 YouTube live stream, she revealed that a Let It Shine sequel was planned, but that it was cancelled for reasons completely unknown to her. She was also apparently supposed to get her own show, which also never came to be. Hollywood Records, though, seemed to be the main cause for concern here. They dictated what the celeb could wear, say, and sing, and the people that the network supplied her to work with wanted her to sound, quote, sellable, which is a term that is up to interpretation by you guys. She put out a few singles and an EP, but right before her actual album was supposed to drop with the record label, the label dropped her. And apparently they told Coco, quote, "We don't know what to do with you." At that point in her life, she was homeschooled after dropping out to make Disney and her career her priority. Afterwards, she understandably dealt with depression, but with the support of her parents, she graduated high school early and moved to LA. Going forward, she booked the role of Hilary Banks on Bel Air, signed a new record deal with High Standards and Def Jam Recordings, and dropped her major label debut single, Caliber. So good job. Number 2, Ashley Tisdale. Another heavyweight Disney star, Ashley Tisdale played Sharpay Evans in Disney's High School Musical trilogy and in her own spin-off, Sharpay's Fabulous Adventure. She also played major roles in The Suite Life of Zack and Cody and Phineas and Ferb. Now, after the first High School Musical movie, which, if you don't know, was huge, Ashley joined her castmates for High School Musical The Concert. While on the tour, which itself must have been both a dream come true and a nightmare with all the scheduling and little downtime, she also performed her own original song, He Said, She Said. However, similar to the experience that Jonas Brothers had, Disney made her change certain lyrics. In a TikTok, Ashley said that Disney made her change the line "kissing like that" to "dancing like that" for the tour. The original lyrics were "Baby, I can see us moving like that. Baby, I can see us touching like that. Baby, I can see us kissing like that. We don't need no more he said, she said." But while I get the image that Disney is trying to uphold here, I don't believe changing an artist's original work is fair. Just take the song out in its entirety. That would have been my idea. I think that would still not be okay. So just like, I don't know, leave it alone. And finally, in at number 1, Alison Stoner. You may recognize Alison Stoner for her supporting roles in actually quite a few Disney Channel productions, like The Suite Life of Zack and Cody, Camp Rock 2, The Final Jam, and Phineas and Ferb. I remember them best from Cheaper by the Dozen, but that's just me. They have been one of those few Disney Channel veterans that has actually tried to make things better for other stars going forward, and they've been pretty vocal about some of Disney's shenanigans. In a 2021 YouTube interview, Alison said, "While traversing extreme peaks and valleys of global fame, hidden medical hospitalizations, artistic milestones, rapid adultification, and multi-layered mistreatment I wish on no one, I narrowly survived the toddler to train wreck pipeline." That's a hell of a way to describe surviving Disney. They went on to say, "As someone who lived it and witnessed thousands endure alongside me, I can attest that what is missing from the pipeline narrative are clear action plans for intervention, long-term prevention, and accountability from studios, agencies, and guardians." Unlike other stars, Alison turned their experience into ideas to improve the safety and well-being of other children in entertainment, such as requiring studios to have a mental health professional on set, improving child labor laws, and making media and industry literacy courses mandatory for guardians and representatives. One of my favorite quotes from the celeb, though, goes like this, quote, "If we disrupt and heal the toddler to train wreck pipeline, we won't need another cautionary memoir."
Number 10, their secret son. While many know of the existence of Jaden and Willow Smith, did you know that Will had a third son? Trey Smith was the product of Will's previous marriage to Cherie Zampino, and tends to fly under the radar in the eye of the media. In 2018, Jada brought Zampino on her show and spilled the tea on the real story behind Trey, their relationship to each other, and Will's role as his biological father. For many Smith fans, this was the first time we had even heard about Trey. Will claims that he had to distance himself from Trey and his mother following the divorce. Will recounts struggling to maintain a healthy enough relationship with Zampino for him to play the role of Trey's father figure. Trey was raised by his mom alone, growing up feeling betrayed and abandoned by Will. Eventually, Will made amends twins and became a proper part of Trey's life. But for a long time, Trey was kept hidden from the public, surely leaving a stain on the family unit that can never be washed away. Number 9. Jada's biases. When the Oscars So White controversy erupted in 2016, Will and Jada were among the most vocal critics of the Academy. For the second year in a row, all 20 of the actors nominated in the lead and supporting role categories were white, something that had not happened since 1998. Jada released a much publicized and highly mocked video explaining why she was boycotting the event, hoping to shine a spotlight on institutional racism. However, during an episode of Red Table Talk, the actress confessed her own tendency to judge others, revealing she specifically had a problem with blonde white women. According to Jada herself, blonde hair on a woman just sets her right off, and she's had to hold herself back quite a few times. She revealed that she had actually turned down several interviews over the years simply due to the interviewer being a white blonde lady. She claims that her bias is due to her history of being bullied by women with those physical traits growing up. I don't know, I got bullied all the time, but you don't see me running from every guy wearing camo around me. Number 8. Will's orientation. In 2012, Star magazine published an expose on Will that somehow stuck around for years. The outlet alleged that Will and his wife were headed for divorce because of his growing bromance with fellow actor Dwayne Martin, which was speculated upon due to the multiple outings the pair shared in a short span of time. The rumor was only intensified when Jada expressed her dislike for the friendship. She said that she felt like Will flaunts it in her face. He takes Dwayne out all day on exotic vacations while she just sits home alone in her university-sized mansion. Who cares? Well, it's never actually been confirmed if the bromance was more than what it seemed. The fact that multiple sources have accused Will of basically the same things makes us think there might be some merit to the rumors. Number 7. Will Smith almost ended his father's life. The Smiths are famous for getting into way too much detail when discussing their family history. Will Smith released a memoir called Will, released in 2021, that was chock full of juicy info that most certainly should have remained secret. One of the most shocking revelations in the book would have resulted in Will spending his life in prison had he followed through with his plan. The actor explained that his father, Will Smith Sr., got very physical towards himself and his mother all the time. As a child, he vowed to seek revenge for his mother when he was older and capable of doing more. Eventually, his father was diagnosed with cancer, and Will was forced to care for him while he was bedridden. Will saw this as the perfect opportunity to take his papa down. He wrote, "One night, as I delicately wheeled him from his bedroom towards the bathroom, a darkness arose within me." He then went on to describe the moment that he contemplated pushing him down the stairs. He noted that no one would have suspected him and the moment was just perfect. He wrote, "I'm one of the best actors in the world. My 911 call would have been Academy Award level." Will ultimately decided not to end his father's life and instead took care of him until his passing in 2016. Number 6. Bad parents. Jaden and Willow Smith are famous for their outlandish antics and wild lifestyle. Jaden was on track to becoming an actor after starring in the 2008 remake of the classic Karate Kid series alongside martial arts and opera legend Jackie Chan, but later shifted his focus to a more entrepreneurial side of things, developing his own fashion brand, which has garnered him massive success. His sister Willow opted to stick with the more creative roots, however, and has made quite the name for herself in the hip-hop genre. Unfortunately, their behavior comes from a place of neglect. During an episode of Red Table Talk, Jaden confronted his parents, calling out their terrible parenting skills. With both being so busy in their careers, they were almost never home to care for the youngsters. Jaden and Willow recount spending a majority of their childhood with various nannies and teachers, only seeing their parents in between projects or if they were working with their parent on said project, like when Jaden and Will were in the pursuit of happiness. Willow has backed up her brother's story, claiming that the parenting skills forced them to become mentally mature at a very young age, which probably plays some part in Jaden's success at just 24. Despite appearing to be a happy family unit in the media, the reality is Jaden and Willow have been raising themselves for a very long time. Number 5. He gets busy to relax. While the Smiths have famously entangled with other celebs throughout their marriage, Will once again shared a bit too much information in his new book, Will, and at one point made a not so shocking confession. When he was younger, Will was dating a woman named Melanie, Melanie, who he discovered was cheating on him while he was away from work. Smith was deeply attached to his former girlfriend and to women in general. In his book, Will writes that he's always needed a woman to achieve for. Prior to Melanie, Will had only been with one other woman physically, but following the breakup, Will claims to have gone hyena mode over the next few months, whatever that means, making love to any woman who consented. At first using this as a way to relax and feel better about the relationship ending, this eventually grew into a full-fledged addiction, to the point where Will claims to have suffered a psychosomatic reaction from the escapades, causing him to occasionally vomit the moment he reaches completion. I did not need that image in my head, but since I have to suffer, hey, you must now join me. Number 4, they can't wait to get divorced. Breakup rumors have plagued this couple since they first tied the knot in 1997, but they rarely ever came forward to comment on the gossip. However, when the Margot Robbie rumors began to circulate back in the day, Will decided to finally speak up and clear the record. Himself and Jada were not getting divorced, and he was not dating Margot Robbie. Jada backed up that statement on Entertainment Tonight when the question of why people seem to want them to fall apart came up. While they presented a united front, conversations later on the matter suggested that the two had at least spoken about the idea of divorce at one point or another. During Will's appearance on Red Table Talk, the topic came up once again. Will said he would never get divorced as it was something he had already done and he'd like to avoid repeating it if possible. Jada laughed and said, yeah, not an option. But when she had Toni Braxton on as a guest, she claimed that she just simply wasn't mature enough to divorce him, which makes it sound like she was totally down to leave and she just couldn't do it right now. Jada is just counting down the days till she finally turns 18 mentally and kicks his butt to the curb. Number 3, Jada was briefly a Scientologist. While Scientology is usually referred to when breaking down Hollywood wacko Tom Cruise, Jada Pinkett Smith was briefly involved in the community and still partakes in some of its methods to this day. Jada and the rest of her family have often been linked to the controversial religion, though no members apart from Jada have ever actually admitted to being involved in any way, shape, or form. While Jada denies that she's a full-fledged member, the facts are she's been spotted attending several church events over the years. Former member Lee Remini backed up the claims of Jada's involvement, telling the Daily Beast that she herself interacted with Jada at an event taking place at the Scientology Celebrity Center, which is essentially just a giant room with famous nutcases in it, and Tom Cruise probably has an apartment hidden somewhere in there. If you want proof that the Smiths are involved in the religion, the family literally founded a school that contained an exclusively Scientology-based curriculum. That'd be like me opening a library containing just the Twilight series and being like, oh man, I freaking hate Twilight. Why would you just assume that I don't? Number 2, they actually suck. While rumors plagued Will and Jada for the moment they were married, their careers didn't seem to suffer at all. In fact, some would agree that Will was slowly taking over the Hollywood world, starring in much-loved flicks like the Men in Black franchise, I Am Legend, and the Bad Boys series. It wasn't until he slapped Chris Rock at the 2021 Oscar ceremony live in front of the world that the truth began to be revealed. Will exposed himself as an impulsive and aggressive man hidden behind a big smile. When Chris insulted Jada Pinkett Smith by joking about his excitement for a G.I. Jane movie, Will initially laughed, but his face quickly turned to anger when he noticed his wife didn't find that funny at all. Will won Best Oscar that night, but it would be the last good thing that would ever happen to him. The Academy banned Will from ever attending another event, he's been blacklisted in Hollywood, and Jada's talk show on YouTube was cancelled. It turns out that the most sane people in the Smith family are Will's kids, and I'm not sure how I feel about that, to be honest. And at number 1, cheating scandals. For a long time now, Will and Jada have attempted to hide their various marriage misdeeds from the media, but they've never truly been successful in that venture. While both have been rumored to have been cheating on each other multiple times, it was Jada who was confirmed to be the real cheater. While rumors had been circulating that Will was romantically involved with Focus co-star Margot Robbie, those rumors were quickly laid to rest thanks to the crew of the project confirming that any photos taken were on set and in character. Jada, however, was most certainly cheating on Will a few years prior with her Hawthorne co-star Mark Anthony. The proof? Well, Will walked in on them getting jiggy with it and was reduced to tears, according to Jada. While they were able to hide it at the time, the conversation that took place between herself and Will on her now cancelled talk show was quite revealing. Number 10. Amber Heard. According to the internet, Amber Heard is not only an actress, but she's also a humanitarian and a social activist. Okay, sure. She got her big film break starring in the horror movie All the Boys Love Mandy Lane, but I was genuinely shocked when I saw what movies she's also been in. Did you guys know that she was 406 in the movie Zombieland? And she was Seth Rogen's love interest in Pineapple Express. Oh, and she's the reason that Aquaman 2 is gonna be delayed. Since 2016, Amber Heard and her ex-husband Johnny Depp have been throwing accusations at each other left and right. They were accusing each other of domestic altercations that may or may not have taken place during their brief one-year marriage. Those accusations were confirmed during their very public trial in which Depp was suing Amber for defamation over a 2018 op-ed for the Washington Post. While the trial brought to light some disturbing truths on both sides, the biggest shock came when after several days of interviews, witness statements, and mountains of paperwork, a jury found that Amber's statements were in fact false and granted Depp the defamation. Amber had filed a countersuit, which she also kind of technically won, but it was way less than what Johnny got. Sound files, video footage, and witnesses gave concrete evidence that Amber was the instigator in many of their disputes, and that she was subsequently fired from any and all future projects. Number 9. Ellen DeGeneres. In her first on-air appearance since announcing the end of her eponymous daytime talk show, Ellen DeGeneres called the press cycle around allegations of toxicity at her workplace orchestrated and misogynistic. The announcement that her show would be cancelled came after months of receiving negative press following a BuzzFeed article reporting former employees alleging the environment was racially insensitive, filled with harassment and, hey, bullying too. Ellen maintained in interviews that these allegations were not the reason that she would be leaving the show, simply claiming that the program was no longer challenging for her. While the BuzzFeed report did not allege toxic behavior by Ellen herself, several former staff members claimed the whole "Be Kind" motto was not genuine at all, which was reflected in a Twitter thread published by comedian Kevin T. Porter. He asked people to send in their horror stories about the host's rudeness over the years and received over 2,000 replies. Warner Brothers opened an investigation and included that there were some flaws in the day-to-day management of the studio. Following this, Ellen appeared on the 18th season premiere of her show in 2020 and made an on-air apology to viewers, claiming responsibility, later stating that there was no way that she could know the true nature of the work environment due to the 255 employees that worked for her across multiple buildings. Ever heard of a complaint box? Number 8. Katy Perry collects hair. The singer was once asked during an interview a very simple and cute question of, hey, what's in your purse? And fans perhaps hoped that she would respond with like a bottle of Killer Queen, which was her, cologne or cupcake crumbs, but Katy Perry answered with, oh, it's just a big empty bag, and then went on to describe what used to be in it. You see, she claimed that while in attendance at her first Grammy Award ceremony that she got to share a dressing room with Miley Cyrus and Taylor Swift. Now, with all that excitement, you'd think she'd ask for a picture, right? Yeah, no, she asked them for a lock of each of their hair, which Katy found, quote, like totally awesome, but hey, that's weird because ugh. She then elaborated that she would tie little bows to each of them and like put them in her purse. This sounds so made up, like how could that be true? No, Miley and Taylor actually backed that story up online, and Perry claims to this day that Miley Cyrus is the most famous person in her purse and in her contact books. Nice. Number 7. Josie Smollett. In 2019, American actor Josie Smollett, best known for his role in the Mighty Ducks movies and his time as Jamal Leon on the show Empire, approached the Chicago Police Department to report a hate crime. According to himself, 2 unknown individuals appeared from the shadows and began harassing Josie. They flung racial and homophobic slurs at Smollett, while one attacker poured a flammable substance on him, and the other began to insert his head into some rope. News of this altercation made headlines in the following days, as it was announced that an investigation would be made to help piece together what exactly happened. Well, too bad for Josie, the Chicago PD are pretty good at their jobs. They quickly found that the 2 strangers in question were 2 Nigerian brothers named Abimbola and Olambinjo, who had worked as extras on the set of Empire. They raided the brothers' home and found documents confirming the pair had been paid $3,500 each to stage the event. They had video footage of the brothers purchasing the masks, gloves, and hats that are seen in the altercation footage. They also found receipts for the liquid and rope used during the attack. Hey, not a great time to keep track of your finances, guys. In 2019, Smollett was charged with a Class 4 felony for filing a false police report, and on top of that, the Chicago PD was suing him for $130,000 for wasting their time and resources on a fake incident. In the end, he spent 150 days in jail and coughed up a lot of the cash. Number 6. Kylie Cosmetics. Kylie Jenner is the youngest of the Kardashian clan and is extremely successful for her age. In 2019, she made the cover of Forbes magazine as the youngest self-made billionaire ever following the successful partnership between her cosmetic brand and Ulta, a beauty salon company, which would allow the brand previously only available online and in random pop-up stores to be placed on shelves and in Ulta's 1,000 plus stores. This is unfortunate considering the true nature of just where these products come from. You see, rumors of Kylie's mistreatment for her employees were circulating for weeks after several claims from former employees were made public. It turns out every single thing that they said was true. Many people at the factory that mixed and packaged her makeup and beauty products would report that they were never actually given proper safety equipment that you would require to do that job. They were only given hairnets, lab coats, and safety goggles, leaving their hands and faces completely exposed. Workers would regularly report migraines and chemical burns varying in severity. Now, if this isn't bad enough, they were also forced to act as human test subjects for Kylie's new products. This woman was on the cover of Forbes magazine. She was so proud of her company for not testing products on animals, but like, can we agree that using people is like a billion times worse? Number 5. King Charles's affair. The recently crowned King of England has not always played by the rules. In 1981, Prince Charles married Lady Diana, who was 20 years old at the time, leaving a 13-year age gap between them. Behind closed doors, it was speculated that Charles was never actually in love with Diana in the first place, and that was later proven to be true. While things seemed pleasant on the outside, behind the scenes, Charles was secretly meeting up and having an affair with his ex-girlfriend Camilla Bowles. The alleged relationship was written about in the 1992 Diana, Her True Story, but in 1994, Charles actually confirmed the allegations in a documentary, because that's the perfect place to do it. The couple filed for a divorce in 1996, and Diana died 1 year later. While the now king made it clear that he had no plans to remarry, he ended up getting remarried in 2005 to, oh hey look, it's Camilla Bowles, shocking. Number 4. Arnold's love child. Action movie star and former California Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger made headlines in 2011 with the revelation that an old rumor was in fact true. In 1996, Arnold was married to Maria Shriver, a member of the Kennedy family, and they were prepping to welcome their new son Christopher into the world. Arnie didn't prep by building them cribs or baby-proofing the outlets though. Instead, he decided to have an affair with his longtime housekeeper Mildred Baina. Around the same time Christopher was born, so was his illegitimate son, Joseph. Rumors began to rise after his wife noticed the strange and sudden absence of the housekeeper and wondered if there might have been a more sinister reason for her departure. It was later revealed in 2011 that Arnold decided to address those rumors and claim Joseph as his own. Turns out Arnold had given Mildred a large severance package back in the day so she could properly raise their son, leaving on what they call good terms. Well, eventually, after many years of trying and lots of paperwork, Maria and Arnold were divorced, and he's now able to spend more time as a papa. Number 3. Donald Trump's criminal activities. In 2006, Donald Trump was known solely as a wealthy real estate mogul with a hit reality TV show, The Apprentice. He had recently been married to one Melania Trump, and they had a newly born 4-month-old baby. However, reports leaked that Trump was in the midst of an affair with adult film star Stormy Daniels after she filed a civil suit claiming the contract he made her sign to keep quiet was invalid. Daniels claimed that herself and Trump had shared an intimate relationship for roughly a year during his marriage to Melania. These weren't the first allegations of an affair, as Trump has been back and forth in the media since the 1970s, being accused by like 26 women of misconduct. While these rumors never held any merit at first, the truth was finally set free. After being the most chaotic president in recent history, it was announced in March that Trump was going to be arrested on 34 separate violations of a New York law against falsifying business documents to conceal another crime. Over the years, he was essentially taking company money and using it to pay off anyone who may have been a threat to him, both personally or politically. Thanks for the free money, Donnie. Number 2. Paula Deen. Paula Deen is basically Martha Stewart just from the South. Paula opened her first restaurant in a Best Western lodge in Savannah and called it The Lady in 1991. She went on to own and operate several of her own restaurants, as well as hosting a very popular cooking show called Paula's Home Cookin'. Paula shared her recipes for delicious home-cooked meals and took the cooking world by storm, until 2013 when it was revealed that maybe Paula shouldn't be allowed to have a phone. Rumors had been circulating of a more sinister persona buried beneath the warm, sweet Southern lady we saw on TV, and it turned out those rumors were confirmed by Paula herself. Paula admitted to using racial slurs on her social media posts in the past. She would post these rants and aggressive comments, and then she would just immediately delete them to avoid being blasted in the media. Well, hey, the internet's forever, Paula, and Paula's cooking show got canceled. It's all good though. She started another show on the very successful streaming device, Roku. You know? So popular. Just so popular. Number 1. Michael Richards. Michael Richards played one of the most famous sitcom characters of all time on one of the most famous sitcoms of all time. He played Cosmo Kramer on the show Seinfeld for 9 years, and in that time made fans laugh and cry with his hilarious antics and wild lifestyle. Unfortunately, those laughs and cries turned to boos and anger. In 2006, Michael made an appearance at the Laugh Factory in California, where he went on a racially fueled tirade after responding to a heckler in the audience. Rumors of his bias had been circulating for a few years, as Richard wasn't a stranger to using choice words and phrases in his stand-up acts that were considered offensive and racist. Since the reveal of his true behavior, Richards has received an enormous amount of backlash and has given up comedy for good. He was also brought on as a guest on Jerry Seinfeld's popular show Comedians in Cars Getting Coffee and addressed the situation with Seinfeld. Richards seemed very apologetic, and he understood that what he said and did was wrong. But hey man, the words that he spoke that night still circulate the internet to this day, so sorry Michael. Number 10. Woody Harrelson. Woody is a wild child. He's best known in Hollywood as the wildest of wild childs. He eats raw meat, he's an eco-crusader, a protester against violence, and an advocate for the legalization of the devil's lettuce. He's loved on screen, but did you know his father was a hitman? Charles Harrelson was sentenced to 2 lifetime sentences for the slaying of a federal judge in San Antonio. Prior to that charge though, Charles had previously been acquitted for the slaying of Alan Berg, a carpet salesman, and convicted of the slaying of Sam DeGila Jr., a grain dealer. Evidence would show that Charles was not a great hitman. Woody doesn't speak much of his father these days, opting to instead leave his family troubles in the past. He does, however, say that the one piece of advice his father gave him that he still uses to this day is always keep an open mind. Well, Charles knew all about opening minds. With bullets. Number 9. Samuel L. Jackson. To call this man successful would be the understatement of the century. This guy is 75 years old and has appeared in more than 120 feature films throughout his career. In his youth, he was raised by his aunt and his grandparents in Chattanooga, Tennessee. His mother relocated to Washington for work, but she made regular visits home to see Sam. But his father, however, left before he was even in diapers, though he's never actually been one to complain about it. Sam claims that his peers found it strange that he never had any signs of separation anxiety. In fact, he credits his aunt for being his biggest influence both in his life and in his career. He only saw his father 2 times in his life, once when he was a child and the other when he was 6 months old, and the other was 6 months following the birth of Sam's daughter Zoe. His father was in town seeing a show and he decided to visit the family home. Things went well according to Sam, but there was a brief altercation after his dad tried to pull the "don't talk to me like that on your father" speech, and Sam reminded him that he was in fact not. "Papa, go away, you not my papa." On top of this, he grew up during the 1950s in Tennessee, when segregation was still very much a thing. He experienced the truly terrible treatment of human beings, but was able to overcome it all to become Samuel Motherflippin' Jackson. Number 8. Mark Wahlberg. Macky Mack and a Funky Bunch hit the rap scene in 1991. Despite sounding like the title of a cheesy kids show, the crew had a small following and garnered a bit of success. Enough for the leading man Mark Wahlberg to be spotted and picked up by Hollywood to star in The Corruptor, a 1999 action flick that sees Mark playing the leading man Danny Wallace, a police officer who attempts to stop substance trafficking and corruption by Chinese triads. He's had a successful acting career that has recently just been declining in quality, but he's still acting and he looks jacked at the age of 52. So hey, please don't hurt me, Mark, okay? Just Infinite, really hard to watch, so this is my opinion. Growing up in Boston, he was the youngest of 9 children and was relentlessly bullied by his fellow siblings. His parents divorced when he was very young, and he became addicted to the no-no snow by the age of 13. He dropped out of high school and was eventually arrested when he was 18 for the attempted slaying of 2 Vietnamese men. Apparently, he was walking home late one night under the influence of a hallucinogenic narcotic when he spotted the men. Close friends at the time have confirmed that Mark had a bit of a racial biased upbringing, which caused him to be instantly aggressive towards anyone who wasn't white. He attempted to swing a large log at them, which made contact and knocked one of the men unconscious. He was eventually released after serving only 45 days of his 2-year prison sentence and vowed to change his life. So far, he's kept that promise, and I can personally confirm that he is polite and patient because he actually watched a movie at the theater I used to work at, and he travels with a crew of 5 people surrounding him at all times. It's intimidating. Number 7. Keanu Reeves. When the Canadian treasure Keanu Reeves broke onto the silver screen in the indie crime drama River's Edge from 1986, everybody was in agreement that this guy had the goods. He went on to star in Hollywood blockbusters and action flicks well into his late 50s. Yeah, this man is 58. He definitely has whatever magic cream Paul Rudd has. Like, these men do not age. He's loved by all, and rightfully so, but did you know his purity and zen comes from a place of darkness? Keanu's dad abandoned his family when he was just a toddler, and he was arrested for possession of a controlled substance not long after. His mother moved the family around a lot, trying to find steady work. This brought Keanu from Beirut, where he was born, to Australia, to New York, and eventually finally planting his roots right here in Toronto, Canada. He grew up acting as a positive outlet for his hardships, which is how he met his best friend, River Phoenix. The pair met on the set of I Love You to Death, a dark comedy from 1990. They developed a close relationship, which abruptly ended when River unfortunately suffered an overdose from multiple narcotics. On top of that, in the late 90s, Keanu and his wife Jennifer Sim were expecting a daughter, but she was born stillborn at 8 months. This put a lot of strain on their relationship, and they were soon divorced. Only 18 months later, Jennifer was the victim of a car accident and she passed away due to her injuries. Despite his personal hardships and tragedies, Keanu has kept a positive outlook on his life, regularly interacting with fans and just being the most wholesome man to ever exist. Number 6. Jim Carrey. Another Canadian legend, Jim is considered one of the greatest modern comedians of all time, famously releasing 3 films in the year 1995, Dumb and Dumber, The Mask, and Ace Ventura, which all made millions at the box office and still hold up to this day. As many know, comedians tend to have a pretty rough backstory, as the best comedy comes from a place of pain. Well, over the years, Jim has come clean about his strange but fun upbringing, as he likes to say. His family struggled financially, and he grew up watching his mother struggle with depression, which he claims to have been passed down to him. Despite his energy, he was a bit of a recluse growing up, and apparently spent hours in his room making faces in the mirror instead of hanging out with friends. After dropping out of high school to work a full-time job, Jim and his family were forced to live in a Volkswagen van together, becoming homeless for a short period of time. He went on to attempt a career in comedy, at first to minimal success, but of course he was able to find his footing and make his place in comedy history. Number 5. Drew Barrymore. Drew has been starring in Hollywood hits since the early age of 7 years old. She starred in commercials before being cast in the movie E.T. and began a long and fruitful career on the silver screen. It's jarring then to imagine that she struggled with substance control issues before she was even grown up. By the time she was in her late teens, Drew had adopted a taste for the no-no snow, developed a problem with no-no juice, and legally divorced herself from her parents. All of this led Drew to be blacklisted from Hollywood and forced to work cleaning toilets just to make money. She was also married and divorced twice by the time that she was 21. Her parents weren't much help, as her father was also entranced by the world of narcotics, and her mother was just unfit to be a parental figure. She was encouraged to party with celebrities thanks to her mom being a talent manager and bringing her to events in lieu of having a babysitter. Eventually, she was forced into a mental health hospital for her behavior, which she claims is the best thing her parents ever did for her. Doctors and Drew herself agree that she was completely off course and in need of some guidance, which was delivered by the boot camp-esque facility. In fact, it was their suggestion for Drew to separate from her parents legally, claiming that they were to blame for a large portion of her behavior. She returned to the acting world and has since gone on to become a Hollywood fan favorite and now has her own talk show. Hey, guess what it's called? Number 4. Tim Allen. Tim Allen is the voice of Buzz Lightyear and the star of ABC's popular sitcom Home Improvement, which premiered in 1991. While he may have played a family man on TV, many fans may not know that Tim was a smuggler of no-no snow in the early 1970s. According to Tim, he got mixed up with some bad people back in the day while he was selling certain substances on the street for $1. In 1978, Tim was arrested in the Kalamazoo Battle Creek International Airport and was caught with more than 650 grams, 1.5 pounds of no-no snow. Unfortunately for Tim, state legislators had just passed a law that tied a life sentence to any conviction of selling 650 grams or more. Like, as he was being arrested, there was a guy in the car being like, and if you have 650 grams, you're a goner, Tim Allen. However, that sentence was never served, as it was revealed that Tim was set up by an undercover police officer who had been following him for months. Due to this, and Tim's cooperation in providing the names of fellow dealers to the authorities, led him to receiving a lighter conviction that allowed him to be sentenced in a federal court instead of a state court, being able to just ignore that new policy entirely. His information led to 20 arrests and the sentencing of major dealers. Can this please be a movie right now? That sounds awesome. Number 3. Matthew Broderick. You know, life moves pretty fast. And so did Matthew Broderick's car on August 5th, 1987 when he crashed it into another car. Matthew is best known for his role as the iconic character Ferris Bueller in John Hughes' 1986 comedy Ferris Bueller's Day Off. But did you know that he shouldn't be allowed to drive at all? The Ferris Bueller star was driving a rented BMW 316 in Tempo, North Ireland when he crossed into the wrong lane and collided with another vehicle, ending the lives of the driver and her mother. Despite their passing, Broderick was only charged with careless driving, a relatively minor offense. He paid a fine of $5,000 and someone doesn't have a sister or a mom now, so that sounds like a fair trade. At no point during the proceedings were the charges of vehicular manslaughter ever brought up, which the family of the victims called a travesty of justice. Later in life, he was able to make amends to the family and put the past behind them, but he still claims to this day that he can't remember why he was in the other lane. Hey man, whether you're trying to hide something or you're being genuine, that makes you sound super suspicious. Number 2. Joaquin Phoenix. The man behind the madness of Joker has had a pretty steady career consisting of epic performances in films like Gladiator and Inherent Vice. But before the lights and camera, Phoenix was a part of a notorious cult, the Children of God. Essentially a group whose goal was to entice people into joining them by claiming that physical lovemaking was an expression of the Lord's love, with its leaders even referring to themselves as kings and queens. Joaquin's parents joined the controversial religious groups in the early 1970s and traveled with them through South America along with his siblings, including the late River Phoenix. But they finally left when they realized what they were a part of. Phoenix claims that his parents fell victim to the cult's "we're a community, not a cult" attitude, and they were blind to the true intentions of the group, which was to lure impressionable people into their walls to use them in any way that they would allow. Thankfully, Joaquin and his family were able to make it out unscathed, but judging by his demeanor in interviews these days, he still gets flashbacks from time to time of what we can only imagine to be some pretty flabby images. And at number 1, it's Robert Downey Jr. In his own words, RDJ had an interesting childhood, but as you'll see by the end of this entry, that isn't even close to the right word to use it. His parents were both artists who were divorced when he was 13. They led a lifestyle that meant that they were traveling for work a lot and received wild party invites. Growing up in his house, there was always no juice, snow, devil's lettuce, everything was on command due to his parents' party habits. Leaving a young man alone in a big house with questionable liquids and powders, yeah, that always goes well. Infamously, his father passed him a little puff at the age of only 7, which no doubt had an impact on his overall relationship with illicit substances. By the time he was 22, his battle had only gotten worse, eventually landing him not only in rehab, but in prison as well. In his early 30s, he was pulled over for speeding in Malibu. Initially just a traffic stop, but the police found a massive load of black tar hot spoon juice, rakalaka, no snow, and a .357 Magnum hand pew pew in his back seat. He was charged with felony counts of substance possession, DUI, and possession of a concealed firearm. Eventually, he was found passed out in his underpants in his neighbor's child's empty bed, and he's never met his neighbors. Yeah, that was when he knew he needed rehabilitation.
Starting off our list day in the number 10 spot, we have looks. Back in 2022, despite all of her legal drama with Johnny Depp, actress Amber Heard would be named one of the most beautiful women in the world, and she even came close to beating Bella Hadid's nearly perfect score of an absolute face symmetry, which really isn't that surprising, as before all of this mess, we all thought she was both stunning on the inside and on the outside. But now it's clear that she only has beauty on the outside. With Amber Heard's face being 91.85% accurate, media sites have since been flooding with headlines with how beautiful the actress looks on the outside. And it just isn't her face, as the actress also has a pretty stunning body. And even with her trial with Johnny Depp tarnishing her name, people still can't stop talking about how they will always choose to support her because of her looks. Hollywood lives off of good looks to draw in views, and with Amber having a perfect overall look when it comes to Mira, DC executives fear if they were to replace Amber, they wouldn't be able to find anyone that could do Mira justice without upsetting fans who loved the first film. But at the end of the day, it's clear that even if you're problematic, you can always get away with anything as long as you have good looks. Number 9. Success in the box office, with Aquaman becoming one of the highest grossing worlds of a DC movie to date, with the movie crossing the 1 billion mark at the worldwide box office. It would be clear that they cross uncharted waters for a DC movie since The Dark Knight Rises in 2012, which marks a potential turning point for the troubled worlds of DC. With Marvel never really having any troubles when it comes to passing the milestone, as they have $6 billion movies under their belt, DC executives are hoping that Aquaman 2 will be just as successful as the first movie in the box office, and that its success can travel on to other movies that they have planned for the future. With no one really thinking that Aquaman would do as well as it did, it actually turned out to be quite a good movie. With Amber Heard and Jason Momoa being great leads for the film, it has made DC realize that if they want the sequel to do just as well as the first movie, they don't really want to mess up anything that could turn fans away. However, it's going to be interesting to see the film and if it will pull off the same amount of success, especially after thousands of fans said they'll be boycotting the movie if Amber Heard doesn't get removed. Hey Diamonds, are you liking this video so far? If so, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel so you never have to miss out on what I might just cover next. And seriously, you don't want to miss out on the next video. Trust me, so subscribe to the channel. Number 8. Buzz. With it being confirmed that Amber will continue to reprise her role as Mera in Aquaman in the Lost Kingdom, there has been a lot of buzz surrounding Warner Brothers' move to stand by the actress, and because of this, the movie has been the talk of the tabloids since the start of Amber's trial. For good or for bad reasons, Warner Brothers is pretty happy with the fact that no one can stop talking about the upcoming Aquaman movie, and they knew if they were to replace Amber in the movie, then they probably wouldn't be getting as much buzz as they are getting now. With it still being unclear with how much screen time Amber will actually have in the sequel, especially since she testified during her defamation trial with Johnny Depp that a lot of her role has been cut, it seems like everyone has been silent on the amount of time Amber is actually in the movie for, because they know people are going to be curious and they're going to watch the movie regardless to find out what exactly is going on. And I mean, it's a pretty smart move for the company, especially since they need this movie to be a success in the box office when it's released. Number 7. Contract. With many gossip sites trying to claim that Amber Heard was being cut from Aquaman in the Lost Kingdom, Amber's representatives would be forced to make a comment on the issues when they came out to say the rumor mill continues, as it has from day one. Inaccurate, insensitive, and slightly insane. With the movie moving forward to be released in theaters on March 17th, 2023, since Heard originated the role of Mera in the first film back in 2018, thanks to her contract, it wouldn't really be easy for DC to remove her completely from the film. However, during Amber's testimony, she would say, "I was given a script, and the new given versions of that script that had taken away scenes that had action in it, that depicted my character and another character." Without giving any spoilers away, two characters are fighting with one another, and they basically took a bunch of my role out. Very pared down version of the role. They just removed a bunch out. Apparently, Amber is only set to appear in the film for 10 minutes, with the actor earning around $1 million in the first movie and $2 million in the second movie. As discussed in the trial, and per her terms with the DC contract, DC just couldn't get rid of her altogether, as they would still have to pay her regardless. And with the film having a tight budget, they really couldn't afford to bring in another actor to replace the star, as that would cost them millions more. Number 6. They feel bad. According to multiple sources, after Amber and Johnny's defamation trial finished, Amber would be left broke due to her hefty legal fees, and she was even struggling to even treat herself to lavish spending on travel, clothes, gifts, and even wine. With insiders telling the New York Post that Amber had to rely on her homeowner's insurance policy to cover the cost of her legal team in the case. After the trial was over, Amber would find herself to be $6 million in debt. And with Amber now being a mother to a beautiful little baby girl, DC executives feel bad that Amber is struggling to take care of her daughter now, and that she has barely enough money to even take care of herself, especially since Amber has been freaking out when it comes to the fact that she has to pay Johnny $10.4 million, with her lawyer revealing that the actress is broke due to the hefty legal fees associated with her bombshell defamation trial. During the legal trial, she also was painted to be one of the most horrible people alive, and because of this, Hollywood wants nothing nothing to do with her, and it's going to be hard for the actress to even get a normal job, let alone to find another acting job in Hollywood, as Johnny Depp fans have gone completely insane over the information revealed in this case. DC understands also Amber is struggling and they just want to help her get out of a bad situation so she can take care of her daughter. Number 5. They believe Amber's story. With the details of both Amber and Johnny's testimonies being devastating all by themselves, they both shared some insane, gruesome stories about their relationship. And while the witnesses in the trial were pretty persuasive and both the actors were pretty distraught when it came to their testimonies, we can never fully be sure anyone was really telling the absolute truth 100% of the time. Despite the fact that London High Court previously found allegations that proved Amber's story of their altercation was substantially true, with much of the internet overwhelmingly picking Johnny's side, especially after it was revealed that Amber lied throughout most of the trial. Even with justice for Johnny Depp was trending on Twitter, DC executives would still decide to have faith in Amber as they believe in her story. With the executives understanding that Johnny fans will always side with Depp even if he wasn't as squeaky clean as he wanted people to believe, DC believes that there was faults on both sides due to both circumstances. They have chosen to stand by Amber regardless of what is to come because they believe that she needs to tell her story and have her truth come out, even if it's twisted and ruins a man's career. DC believes that it's time to believe women and all women, even if their stories don't make sense. And that's why they continue to support Amber. Number 4. Chemistry. Many fans were urging for Warner Brothers to remove Amber Heard from the Aquaman sequel, and an executive for the company would testify that the company was discussing the subject of having her recasted from the film, as her and Jason Momoa just didn't have any chemistry when they were filming. However, her and Jason then worked really hard to get along and fake the chemistry, so the actress wouldn't be replaced on the set. With executives confirming that Heard did have an option contract with Warner Brothers to play Mira in the Aquaman franchise, Heard's role has never also once been reduced in the forthcoming sequel, as because her role was never once impacted by anything Johnny said in his trial. With the executive further diving into the situation, he would explain that in the beginning they had to delay casting due to the ongoing discussion of the recasting in the role of Mira, as there were concerns of their chemistry and the issues between the two leads, when he said they didn't really have a lot of chemistry together. The reality is, it's not uncommon in movies for two leads not to have chemistry. But after editors were able to do some movie magic and make the two look like they had some major chemistry, Warner Brothers thought it would be best not to replace Amber, as they didn't want fear about replacing her and then the movie magic not being able to make it look like the actors had some great chemistry. Number 3. Money. Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom reportedly had its reshoot budget reduced by Warner Brothers, with Jason Momoa and Amber Heard reprising their roles after the first film was such a success in the box office after it brought in $1 billion. And it didn't take long for Warner Brothers to give a green light for its sequel. However, according to Variety, it appears that the film had to deal with its own production drama after Amber's case started to go viral, with executives having conversations about how they needed to replace the star or the film could potentially flop in the box office. Just when they were going to move along with the plan, Warner Brothers Pictures co-headed Pam Abdi would also tell the director James Wan that there wasn't enough room to do so, as he had to reduce his reshoot budget, as apparently if they were to replace Amber altogether, the film would have expanded into $205 million in overproduction. Variety also notes that making any tweaks to Aquaman sequel or any movie coming out within the next couple of years in order to incorporate them into the new DC world would cost the studio several additional millions, and no one wanted to deal with that. Number 2. Lazy. In the end, it just seems like the DC world decided to stand by Amber Heard and protect her during this mess of a trial because no one really wanted to do any extra work when it comes to recasting the actor, especially since Amber had such a prominent role within the first film. While it wouldn't necessarily be hard to find another actor who could do the same job, executives would have to hire a casting agent, and then they would have to go through a number of different steps and tests just so they could replace Amber on the set. And with much of the film already being filmed before fans started to call for Amber to be fired, DC also didn't want to figure out how they could work around everyone's schedules just so they could refilm certain parts of the film. They also didn't want to rework out the budget or even deal with a potential court case if they were to fire Amber from the movie. So they just chose to go with everything that was already planned and figure out what to do next if the film does happen to get a third sequel. And coming in at number 1 today, we have Johnny's words. While Johnny took took the stand in his defamation trial, he would reveal that he once even reached out to Warner Brothers executives on behalf of his former wife Amber Heard following her audition for Aquaman, when he said, "For a few years I had a multi-film deal with Warner Brothers. So we'd been in business together, so I know these people. I'd been in their films with them." Johnny then revealed that Amber even asked him if he would speak to them for her so she could get the role. With the film being shot in Australia, it was a great concern for her. Johnny then took the time out of his day to make several phone calls to 3 Warner Brother film executives so he could paint a beautiful picture of Amber. Amber was then able to get the role in the film, as Johnny was able to curb all of the film executives' worries about the actress. On May 17th, Amber then tried to claim that Johnny would later try to get her fired from the film, as she said she saw all these emails and text messages. However, Johnny would only come out to say that this wasn't true, as he would never want to ruin anyone's reputation and make them lose a paycheck, even if that same exact scenario happened to him. And the only person he told this was his sister, because he was upset, as he felt like he was responsible for painting such a beautiful picture of Heard, and that they were going to face all these problems in the future for the franchise, and he felt bad.